What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Raven, and I'm being joined by none other than Paddy from Paddy's Parlor. We actually talked about two of his games, but we're going to go a lot more in depth tonight. I'm hoping to have this up by tomorrow morning. So no reading, but we're talking games, and that's one of the things we love to do on this channel. Paddy, welcome aboard, man. It's good to finally have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know we were hoping to do Saturday, but as you can see, I'm in a hotel room. I'm out of town for work, but I brought my streaming stuff in case I was gonna record anything for my own Rumble channel. And as luck would have it, we had some time now. So thanks for having me. Thanks for making time, because I know it's a lot later for you than it is for me right now.
Oh, no problem at all. You know, I'm working. You know, I'm closing at work tomorrow, so like I don't have to be up. So.
Very nice.
I'm going to stay up anyway. I've got some other stuff to do, and just, you know, things I'm kicking around with, things I'm reading, and a cat who's looking at me like, feed me early, and I'm like, no.
Well, yeah, you've got a lot of reading to do. I've seen those shelves. They're pretty bowed out.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I got my Pathfinder first edition books yesterday. Like, as I'm leaving the crib, there's this massive box sitting there, and the eBay seller had given me the tracking number, but there had been no movement since the 28th is when he gave me that tracking number. And then we're both like, where is this thing? What's going on? Well, none of us have an idea. And then it must have gotten delivered the day before, because I didn't check mail the day before. I go out and see this big box. I had just enough time to, haul it in, cut it open. I saw it. I grabbed those books, stuck them in my messenger bag, and hauled ass.
Right.
Man, that was a heavy load.
Nothing's worse than like expecting a shipment of books and like they're left out on the porch.
Well, I mean, here in the apartment, the mailboxes are like just outside. So you go outside. There's like a little kind of like lobby of sorts. They were left right there, so they weren't out in the rain or anything. So I was happy about that. And then today, my Top Secret New World Order box got dropped. I was like, oh yeah,
nice.
That's that. I'll be honest with you. I've never really considered the spy and espionage genre something I'd be interested in, but after seeing the PDFs of that, I was like, yeah, totally got to have this game. I'm not a James Bond guy, but this looked like sort of like Mission Impossible government conspiracy, and I'm like, yeah, I could get into that. I could really get into that.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing your review on that one soon.
Oh my goodness, dude! I'm telling you, if I can get a good solo play together, yeah, I might just do it. I still got my Call of Cthulhu Alone Against the Flames thing to do, and I'm about to start on 4 Against the Great Old Ones. So, guys, keep your eyes tuned to Against All Odds. That's going to be in the link tree down below. Definitely check that out. Read up. Also got my Substack up. So, and guess what? This video will be posted to Substack as well. So we're gonna be on like 4 or 5 different platforms. It's gonna be great. But enough about the games on my shelf here and under my table and boxes and in my closet on a shelf.
Lining the walls, insulating the house.
Or stacked up on the coffee table, and I have to move them constantly to do the readings. Let's talk about your games, because I really want to start, from Chalt here. I really want to start on this one because it was like I read this and could not stop laughing. It was so awesome.
That's good.
This is one that I absolutely loved.
So, funny story about the Boy From Mezteha'as. Of course, with it being Venger's Chalt IP,
right?
The creativity is unbound. I mean, you could do anything from really dark, deep fantasy to your awesome sci-fi, which was fun. But I actually got the insensitivity seal of approval from Miguel and Sylvia. I wish I had been a fan of theirs for a lot longer than I have, but I didn't really start to meet everybody until January, when I hopped onto Twitter and decided that I was really going to do this games writing and games making thing instead of just for my personal use. And I remember catching one of their videos where they were lamenting sensitivity readers, and they had offered their services as, we're going to be insensitivity readers. We'll do a couple for free. We'll see what the business is like. I sent them this, and they said, your book is perfectly and astonishingly insensitive. You did great. And I was like, that's what I needed right there.
And I'll tell you what cracked me up was just this very opening line. San Francisco was a go-to destination for all manner of chalt. I was like, oh shit, here we go. I read that and I'm like, oh, here we go. Yeah, that irreverence is going to be there. And there's just so much here to look at. Consenting adults used to enjoy the fab shows that the eunuchs of Gillette would put on for their gay lovers. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yo,
so
already out the gate.
That was one of the things that I loved about the Chalt book. I clearly can't leave home without it. But reading about the different cities, and there was something about the city of Gillette, the best the man can get, and it's like a feminist New World Order type of kingdom, and the whole idea of them having like manservants and eunuchs, and then like breeding males. I thought that was such an idea, and what would it be like for refugees of their tyrannical government? Where would they go? What would they make? And what would they do with their lives, having been so like sickened from, all of what they had been subjected to? And so, I thought it'd be fun.
It definitely looked like fun. And what I thought was really cool about it, though, like I said, it just right out of the bat, right out of the gate, we can see you use the same design for these boxes here as Venger uses in his books. Only these are in black and white, so you really got that old school feel here.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonzo Smaff is like the first character that you meet, like right there from the jump. A disheveled sun elf is handing out flyers of his son, his golden skin muddied. Passerbys let his papers fall to the ground as he hurriedly scrambles to pick them up. He looks at you personally as if he knows you. Yes, you've been visited by my stork.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh boy, here we go. So already your use of color is there, like on page. It says page 4, but we're not even counting the cover or the second page.
Right. So, I mean, it is a zine. If you go into Adobe Acrobat Reader and you hit print and you hit the booklet option, it'll print into a 5.5 by 8.5 fold out book, and it'll auto format the pages so you can just fold the whole printout in half, and then you'll have it as a book that you can read. And I find that the maximum number of pages, I mean, leaflets that you can use is like Mutants is 52 pages, I think.
Right.
So, whatever that is divided by 4, that's the number of papers. And you can only fold so many papers in half before they start looking weird. So you have to be pretty concise when you're trying to do this underground punk print at home indie zine scene.
Well, there was one that I picked up, and I still have it on my desk.
Do you tell me, is it the Skateboard Wizards?
No, Skate Wizards, actually, believe it or not, Skate Wizards is sitting right in my Swords and Wizardry box.
Nice.
Because I was like, oh, it fits in there. Like everything fit in there. So I was like, I'm gonna put it right there just to preserve it. I've also got Mothership, which I like as like a rules light space horror game. So if Alien seems to be just a little too daunting for my new players or something like that, I'll whip out Mothership. I'll like, let's just do it this way. It's a little easier. But one that I thought was really interesting, and this one I got into not all that long ago, was Red Judge. This one, the way it's formatted, you just make certain cuts in the paper, you make certain folds, and it's this little book. This is the entire RPG, well, right here.
That's clever.
That's the entire book. You got a little character sheet on the back. You could print one of these for just about everybody. Stick them in like well, I guess baseball card sleeve or something like that, and just hand them out. You know, you get yourself a set of dice, and there you go. You're off to the races. And it's basically like what if you mix Judge Dredd with sort of like an Old West feel. So most of your street judges on bikes or whatever are going to be more like Wild West outlaw types. And that's like, honestly, this independent zine style RPG is looking more appealing to me than most of these really big books. You know, like these books like Pathfinder First Edition. That core rule book is
That's
pretty
pretty
big.
thick.
Yeah,
She's dummy thick.
And
Well,
then
they, you know, to their credit, didn't they put like the player's handbook, the DM's guide, and the monster manual more or less into that one core book?
yeah. Like even Dungeons and Delvers has done the same thing. Again, artwork is beautiful. The text is great.
Yeah, that's David Guile. He did all the layout for Chult.
Yeah, and on top of that, like he did the artwork in this Mike Mignola style, which I love.
Oh my God, Mike! Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's
like
a look.
my first exposure to Mignola's work was Bram Stoker's Dracula, the comic book adaptation. I just didn't think it worked for that, so I was a little bit hesitant to try Hellboy when it first dropped. But when I tried it, like a friend of mine was like, "You've got to check this out." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll read it, and if I don't like it, I just never have to buy my own." Then that was like part of my collection because that art style really worked for that particular comic book. And then he's doing that same style for this medieval fantasy adventure game. And I'm like, this is amazing. And it fits so well. And his wife did all the colors for it. And I was like, these two did an amazing job on that. And then there are other books that are like pretty much all in one, like OSRIC is one of them, because that took the AD&D first edition, PHP, DMG, and Monster Manual, combined them all into one. For Golden Glory, did the same thing. Dungeon Crawl Classics is massive, but half of it's spells.
Okay.
So you only got like 150 some odd pages really dedicated to the game itself. And the rest is all, spells for the wizard. So I can't really fault them too much. I was able to get through that pretty easily. And I think the biggest books I have are actually adventure books. So I got like Crown of the Oathbreaker and Starship Warden are my two thickest books. Crown of the Oathbreaker clocks in at like 900 pages, and that's for D&D 5th edition.
Man,
so that's not a core book in and of itself, but these massive core rule books. Personally, I don't know. I kind of like them broken down into smaller chunks myself.
Yeah, I was thinking like the Planescape books when those started coming out, and it was like just little chunks, like the March of the Modrons and such, and then they had like the adjoining comics that they would do with those releases. I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, like Dragonlance Adventures got me familiar with the world of Krynn before I was really able to jump into my first Dragonlance novel, which was one of the newer ones, Dragons of Deceit. And then I went back to the Chronicles trilogy, read through that. When that ended, I was like, man, I already miss them. And right then I jumped into the Legends trilogy. And after that, I was like, okay.
It's a lot to digest.
Here I come.
Yeah.
I think I need to get my head out of that medieval space for a little while. And Barsoom, here I come. And wow, holy crap, that's blowing me away. I've really never been in that territory, but I can see shades of that type of series through even this, because this is still taking place on Chult. There's just it's a new locale, and here it is right here. Just off the Skaba is San Francisco, and wow, I love this map, dude. It is like so simple. I love it. You could still get lost in it.
It's kind of twofold for me, because again, it's like, I had a month to do this book when I found out about it, and I only had just started talking to Venger after becoming one of his quick fans because of the Good Samaritan thing. And that was another one of those events that kind of that lit the fire underneath my butt that I needed to go and start going out there and supporting these people that are I think doing the right thing, doing positive things. And so yeah, I had about a month, and again, working in the zine space, you can only get so detailed on those little on your little pieces of paper. So it worked out really well to have a more or less ambiguous. When I was doing it, it kind of reminded me of like an old video game map. I was thinking of like the Page Master video game from the Super Nintendo or Super Mario, where the main locations were really what people wanted to know, and you just needed to know where they were in relation to everything. And there is a time limit to complete the adventure, and so there needed to be some sort of scale for how long it took to travel from one place to the next.
So like right down here, the 1 hour and 2 hour stretch. But I love how like you do kind of reflect some real world stuff here. So the open border, for example, which is a broken wall, and you still have a main gate.
Well, like,
yeah,
you gotta have a proper place to check in.
A proper place, yeah. And there's Vendor Square here, which is obviously going to be the big market. You've got Posture Palace and the service entrance. This is the one that killed me when I first saw it. I started cracking up, the poop chute.
So yeah, there's in order to make it feel not so railroady, there's a couple of different options for the players to get into San Francisco proper. So the poop chute, the main gate, and the open border, all of which they have their own special rules for what happens to the players on their way in and what they're permitted to carry into the city with them. So that plays a big part of it. And kind of like you said, it's I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, it's like a South Park parody, of a lot of the headlines that I read. So if you ever wanted to, live your RPG life in an episode of South Park just with a chalk skin over the top of it, I certainly like doing that type of stuff.
And of course, it's the city next to the Cerulean Bay. Gotta love that. And the armaments shop.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta know, is this armaments or is this a gym? Because you got some arm flexing there.
So the arm man Nentz is a character that you can meet in the game, and he's running around in the vendor square, and he's there to give the players a little bit of a boost in case they're stuck in a place or don't really know how to proceed.
So he's the guy that just kind of shows up and goes, "Hello, I see you are weaklings. You are tiny. Now I'm going to give you some supplements that will help you pick things up and put them down again."
But kinda. I actually did draw some character art for him. He's certainly not the gentle Norwegian giant that he probably could be, but he suffers that elf stature,
right?
So he shows up and he does cybernetic arm enhancements.
Oh, nice!
But he also has a little bit of a black market tendencies, if you will. So in the city of Transcisco, where they don't allow weapons and such, the armed man's got what you need.
I love this 2.5 them.
Yeah. with poor old Belinda. She's just trying to figure her life out.
I was like, you. This is great because like I'm looking. All I saw was Belinda at first, and I was like, "Wait, he added an A." Okay.
Well, and Belinda's significant other is Manny Fred.
Oh, this is great. Oh, I love this. And click clack goes the brass. A hail of ballistic rounds erupt around the street. Cease and desist terrorist is repeated in a calming female voice. Oh, this has got to be going back up to this part.
Oh yeah, here. Click clack. That's the dog bot.
Patrol and the D05 bot. Wow. Oh man, the hit points on the D05 bot are like double what the Popo Patrol is.
Oh yeah, the dog bot is not to be trifled with, unless you know your way about a computer.
And if you can get it like patched into that thing. Let's see, what else we got here? We've got Battle of the Sexes, naturally. Much dildo about nothing. What happens in sand could be an STD.
So that one was one of my favorites because the way when she sits there and she's like, and you might have given me what? Do you know what that can do for my scales? Like, just one of those things is thinking, what is it? Herpetology is the study of reptiles, and it would be funny for a herpetile? I don't know, what do you call a reptile? I don't know why it's called herpetology, but herpetology and herpes was something that came to mind. I was like, oh yeah, that's something that's got to be put in this book.
And of course, Sanger's Institute of Eugenetics. And I was like, I know exactly where that went.
Yeah, the real ones always do.
And the candy out of space. I was like, now we're getting into Lovecraft territory. And I love me some Lovecraft. Like, I am just an unapologetic Lovecraft fan. Have been since I was a teenager. And I got to thank Metallica for that, because they actually introduced me to it before I knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how I got into it. A friend of mine actually recorded, I'd only had maybe one or two of their tapes at the time. This is back when we were carting cassettes around.
Yeah.
And he recorded a live, like he recorded Headbangers Ball. One of the videos was Metallica live doing The Thing That Should Not Be. And I was like, man, that sounds like it will make a great movie. And then I got Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets had that song on there. I was like, yeah, cool. And then Ride the Lightning had this instrumental where Cthulhu was misspelled, but it was there.
Ktulu, right?
Right. And I will never forget this. I saw this book. It looked a little dusty. Didn't look like many people had taken it down, but it was the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and it was listed as horror. I was like, oh, what's this? So I pulled it down, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out. Check this thing out. I got home, and I'm reading it. I come upon Call of Cthulhu, and I'm like, wait, what is this? Then I'm starting to recognize elements from that story, and I'm like, like the end of it blew my mind, because that was the first story I'd ever read. I start reading the rest, and I'm like, shit, nothing's ending right for these characters, man. And even in the case of Charles Dexter Ward, he's not dead. He's not insane. He's like the happiest ending in the entire mythos, but he's just sitting there with that sense of existential dread just hanging over him. Like, he's waiting for the other shoe to drop. But when we get into Lovecraft territory with this thing, the candy out of space,
like you said,
a towering mass of blue and pink cotton candy. Holy crap, that's terrifying.
Nothing is sacred in San Francisco.
Nothing.
There's something about golem monsters that I really like. One of my favorite opening adventures that I used to put my players through that had never played before came out in 3.5. I can't remember the name of the adventure, but it was some independent author came and did it. And you went to a witch's hut that had gone missing or whatever, and somebody put a call out to go help her out. And you go in there, and her kitchen is alive. Like the pot wants to boil over and fight. They're not mimics; they're just all animated.
Yeah.
And then you can go into the basement, and in the basement is a calzone golem. And so that's one of the things that I just really liked about that adventure was it was just wacky enough for people to kind of get into it, have a couple of laughs, understand how Dungeons and Dragons works. So golems are just one of my favorite monsters to make, favorite monsters to have the players face off against.
And I think there was actually a bit of a spirited Twitter debate recently about whether or not Frankenstein's monster was considered a zombie. And someone pointed out, which I'm gonna give them credit where it's due. I don't remember the name, so if you're watching this, comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Pointed out that this was a flesh golem, and
I have a
I was
sneaking
like,
suspicion it was Alchemic Raker, but I could be wrong.
"Hey, stop it!" Sorry, he's decided he's going to attack now. It's like 2 minutes to his feeding time. He's like, "Feed me now!" And I'm like, "No."
Cats are like that.
Come here. Come here. Come here. Apparently, he wants to get in on the show, too. Got anything you want to add?
Oh, we're definitely going to do a stream where both of our cats get on stream.
So, he's not going to add anything, but he is going to show his ass.
Oh, here it is. So, at Archlich Eternal, which is Archlich OSRIC, metal name. I don't think you can get much more metal than that. Oh, stupid ads. But, yeah, so Archlich OSRIC, he did that. And then the post, I think, came from Renegade Airship. I don't know. Anyway,
I had to agree on the flesh golem part because he was a mass of like other people, killers and things like that. And to Dr. Frankenstein, he was just parts that he put together. He wanted to test his theory to see if he could extend life or restore it. Basically, the dangers of playing God, and he created a flesh golem. And of course, I love the movie that came out right after Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Loved that movie. That was great, and I thought it was probably one of the best depictions of the monster ever, in my opinion. But definitely would make for a good D&D character, especially if that flesh golem were like bigger or even had mismatched parts. That was something that I don't think the movie went into, which is a possibility that could happen. You got a great arm from this guy, you got another great arm from that guy. Maybe they're not exactly matched up. He's got varying degrees of strength, and
you can never buy an armor that fits.
Yeah.
It's like, I can never find a left shoe that I like in 12 and a half.
Or what was it? Dylan Dog Dead of Night. His friend wakes up and he's like, "What happened to my arm?" "Well, you kind of lost it, so we got you another one." "Why is it brown?" "They didn't have Caucasian in your size."
Oh yeah. Yeah, her name was Abby Normal.
My name's Igel. But I'm love like what I love about this most was how it plays so well upon, and I'm the guy that I'm like, let's keep the real world outside the door. Let's leave that out there. We're here to kind of cut loose and have some fun. This, even though it has like allusions to real world stuff, it still looks like a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of contention, and I've gone on record, I suppose, to say that there's a lot of woke dribble out there, and whether there's Mr. Nets himself. Yeah, that's him with a cybernetic arm. Looking at it, dude, that's got no hand.
I could totally fix that for you. Maybe you should stop by.
Exactly, but so yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that plays to the other side, and I think it's all fair and well for there to be a market for that, stuff that's kind of antithetical to that.
Yeah.
But I don't need to be preachy about it. I think that's and if I ever come off as preachy, I would hope that somebody would remind me, like, "Hey, Paddy, you've gone too far. Maybe dial it back a little bit," because it should be fun, and I think everything deserves to be made fun of. I mean, nothing is so sacred that I'm not going to put it in chalk if I get the opportunity to.
Well, I mean, even with South Park, nothing is sacred with those guys. Every sacred cow gets shit on at least at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so, something like this, which I'm about 25, I'm kind of scrolling here, 25 pages into, holy crap.
Oh yeah.
That's a bad situation. I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling bad for that dude right now.
Oh yeah, and I could see why that might be like a personal thing for you.
Yeah.
Than your past. That was the guy who was trying to download that ID10T patch.
Yeah.
They just couldn't figure it out. It didn't go over well.
Yeah,
He wasn't ready.
That's the guy that spent all weekend messaging me about the ID10T patch. I'm like, oh boy, shit, he's not gonna make it.
And that's a classic too.
That guy's really not gonna make it. Yeah, especially if he gets shoved into one of those armpits, he's really not gonna make it. In fact, I think that fist coming down on his face would probably be a mercy at that point.
At that point, perhaps, yeah.
And this is, but what I loved about this particular one was it, like, you can't look at it because even Chalt itself is satire.
Mm-hmm.
This was satire cranked up to 11 and the knob broken off, and it's sort of like watching a Gwar show. There were parents that were super concerned about Gwar and, oh, they're lewd and things like that. And I'm like, or the violence is so much. I'm like, that's kind of the point. It's all cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take it seriously. And if you do, I think it's probably you that has the problem. But that's what I love about it, is it's so over the top. It's so cartoonish, and it's that way without being preachy.
Yeah, and that's
like, it doesn't talk down to you. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah, and it's like and I try to write it because I know that there's a lot of people who, they like to buy things to look at, to read. There was this movie that I watched a little while ago. It was a really low budget movie. It was called Of Dice and Men. And it was a movie about a group of real life players and their relationships between each other. And within the first 15 minutes of the movie, the friend group is like breaking up because the one guy's got a new job, the other guy's going off to the Marines, and the one guy who's just been a giant nerd his entire life is sitting there reading RPG books. And his buddy's like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you reading those books? We're not going to get time to play." He's like, "Can you just stop? I'm trying to booksturbate." Booksturbate? What? Look, I don't need to be able to play the book. I just need to open it and like smell it and sniff its pages and look at all of the art in it. Booksturating. Open a fine glass of wine, maybe light a candle, and just really dive into it. So some of it was written specifically to be read while at the same time being played, because they're going to be people who are like very staunch, not even political parody, but I like this IP, or I like the idea enough to have it, or maybe I want to support it even if I don't play it. At the very least, you get a couple of pages of visual gags and headline one-liners and punchlines. And some people just, that's worth the price of admission, especially when it's pay what you want or free.
And one of this, because you have like these really grotesque creatures in there.
Mm-hmm.
When you announce this next game that I'm going to show off, that's when I was like, I'm going to jump on it as soon as I get home. Mutants.
This is my baby. Yep.
This is your baby. This is the one. I'm like, okay, the Boy From Mezteha'as is cool. It's funny. It's great. This one though is even better.
So this one is specifically a tabletop skirmish game. It's my own system. It's something I've been working on for 4 to 5 years now. And when I got into wargaming and I kind of put RPGs behind me, this is like midway through 4th edition, then 5th edition. At that point, it was called D&D Next was introduced. I was really over Wizards of the Coast by then. And I dove headlong and deep into tabletop wargaming, especially games that had some RPG-like elements into it. And eventually, after playing a lot of War Machine and Warhammer 40K, and then I was introduced to this game called Dead Zone and the plethora of indie games that were out there. I was like, I need to make my own, because I'm not going to say I could do it better, but I can at least make something that I want to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it was a long road to a somewhat of a victory there, because Mutants didn't start off that way. Mutants was really the amalgamation, the catch-all from 2 other games that I was trying to write that I didn't like the rules. Like I would sit down, I'd write some rules, some ephemera, ephemera being like that jelly thought that you have that kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, just the abstract concept itself.
Yeah. And so I'd write all this down into one of those college ruled notebooks, the kind that's got like the TV static cover.
Yeah.
And anything that didn't look like it fit, I had to at least write down the idea, because I didn't want to lose it to the ether for forever, So I wrote it down, and eventually I just had enough of these spam rules, all the cuttings that weren't going to be prime rib. And I was looking over at the spam and realizing how much I actually like a can of spam. And I was like, that could be its own game right there. And one really bad play test later, Mutants is now its own game. And I think it plays out really well. Oh, yeah. If you ever want to write your own game, not just your own TTRPG scenario, but if you ever want to write your own game, the first playtest is always the scariest. You're going to realize that a lot of stuff that you think sounds good in your head does not feel good in real life. So don't let it overtake you. Just keep on trucking on and take good notes.
And that was one of the things I picked up on pretty much immediately. Was this goes back to stuff like chainmail. This goes back to those kinds of like miniature war games, where this one doesn't really focus on diorama or terrain more than just having your little group created. Someone else creates their own group, and then you send them in to just basically do battle, like almost Braveheart style.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at it, like right here, you've got melee, ranged, and defensive things. Vigor, of course, is going to be how much life your mutant has. And even with the art here, I've noticed, like, you've got this guy who looks, wow.
Pretty savage. Yeah. It was,
yeah.
If the cover art didn't kind of explain kind of what day-to-day life might look like for mutants, the inside cover, I wanted it to like really open up with the bang and show like the game is lethal. So one of the things that some people like to complain about with war games, I mean, me especially, is that you play on these, 6 foot wide by 4 foot long tables or whatever. And you spend the first turn and a half, sometimes 2 turns, just pushing your armies into engagement with each other. This one, it's within turn 1, you're like trying to stab somebody in the throat or trying to dual akimbo somebody around the corner, and it gets rid of 2 turns of unnecessary fat and goes right to the good bacon.
And I don't know whether this guy's getting shot up or what. It looks like he looks like the extra from RoboCop getting nailed by Ed 209, and it looks like this big gaping maw in his stomach is the one screaming.
Oh yeah,
not so much him. I don't think he has vocal cords left.
So the James Hetfield looking Triclops on the right got him with a well-timed sawn-off shotgun blast.
Nice. So he's hitting him all at once,
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you've got this big lizard guy here. You got this. So I guess I would.
Harpy.
Yeah, I was going to say harpy, definitely. And he's obviously packing. Got this lady here. She's just all up into
the loot.
Yep, she's all into the loot. And this guy here is like grumbling that he was shot in the shoulder.
Well, yeah, you can see he's got the one robot arm, and he got shot in his real arm. It's like of all places.
He's kind of got this look like, man, this is the 3rd time this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that cover, I've actually made 2 of the characters on that cover as miniatures. And the first one was the Yanti looking feller. I took one of the Reaper miniatures, one of their Snake Men miniatures, and I think he had 2 scimitars and a bow on his back.
Yeah.
And I took the scimitars off and I gave him a meat cleaver and like a steak knife. and then put a rifle on his back, and then I tried to put some like spices on, like he has a bandolier with spices because his name is Steven the Ever Hungry.
Steve the Ever
So
Hungry.
he's a hungry boy, and on the post-forsaken planet, protein is king.
He's hungry. And I did notice that you really did build up you built up a bit of a world to explain where they are.
Yes. And it's just vague enough. Like, I mean, really, if I had started writing this book and was well aware of Chalt, I probably would have asked Venger if it was cool if I made a tabletop skirmish game that existed on Chalt. I mean, for the most part, I'm not saying that the post-forsaken planet is like an infinite desert. Towards the very bottom of the book, if you scroll down, you can actually see what looks like a coniferous forest kind of backdrop in front of like in front of a large moon kind of silhouette. But there's a lot of my favorite stuff going on in Chalt that I'm like, man, I could have saved myself some world building time and hopped on Venger's IP. And I think, the flavors are there, that kind of gonzo, zany sci-fi action. But yeah, the post-forsaken planet's just ambiguous enough for it to happen at any point in the galaxy. Oh, and yep, there's the Chadozi. I was pretty spurned on when the Hadozi got taken off of Spelljammer. So we made sure that the great Chadozi, was given honor in Mutants.
I think the only thing about the whole Hadozi thing that just upset me wasn't necessarily their portrayal initially. What upset me was that Wizards of the Coast could have just saved themselves a lot of trouble by doing what I call copy, paste, update, compile, finish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really all they have to do. Everything has actually been done for them. All they got to do is copy, paste, update, finish, release. And they can't even do that. It's like...
some of it's just let sleeping dogs lie. They have an excellent... I forget who it was talking about it the other day. And I think it was I Hate Ryan David on Nerd Cognito was just saying the IP alone, you could slap Dungeons and Dragons on a lunchbox, it'll sell. You can slap Dungeons and Dragons on Hot Pockets, and apparently they sell.
You can slap it on a bottle of Coke and it'll sell. I know because I've already started seeing it.
It's just really bad mismanagement. And I think one of the things that makes me the most upset about it is being somebody who's been a fan of it all my life, and knowing that if I would have bought stocks in the company rather than buying books, I could have been a decision maker, leading the company way better than these guys can. And it is unfortunate because I would love to love D&D, and I want my kids to love D&D, but luckily they're at the age where I could say, hey, you guys want to play tabletop, and I can start just getting them into that. Like, I taught my 6-year-old son how to play 1-page rules, and now he's come up with his own game that he likes to call random page rules, and the rules are different every game. And I'm still just trying to catch up, but he's excited for it.
I think it's like when I got into Gaslands Refueled, and I still have some modded Hot Wheels cars. I still got a box of Hot Wheels cars I have not modded yet, and I'm showing off pictures of the process to some of my coworkers. My boss was looking at them, and he was pretty amazed. And he goes, how long does it take to mod one of these Hot Wheels? And I was like, oh, it takes a few hours, to do like 2 or 3 of them. Of course, you're making them look beat up. It's this post-apocalyptic future. It's a dystopian world. Yeah, very Mad Maxified. And he was like, I don't know if I have time to do that. I was like, that's okay. You don't have to. I was like, you could buy a whole bunch of stock cars, use the death race rules, the templates, and the skid dice, and you could just play it like a regular old race.
Oh yeah. So what I do is I actually I printed out there's like the little card sheets, and they're like Magic the Gathering card size, the regular trading card size, and then I just taped taped it to one of my like token cards or land cards or whatever, and then give people what ready erase marker. And I just do, you have a turret mounted HMG and a missile launcher that's crew fired, so it only shoots forward. I'm sorry, it's front mounted, and basically it's like you're set. You know, you've got 3 missile rounds that if you just line it up right, you can do that. Then everyone can shoot with the HMG. And then, you know, 5, 6, I mean, I've done as many as 8 players. This one kid showed up with the one Hot Wheel car he had, and it was a Trump limousine that he had bought. And in all fairness, he had owned this limousine for like 10 years of his life. And we played together in like 2016, so it was pretty funny. But Gaslands is one of those great games. Mike Hutchison has a great mind for games writing.
And honestly, you could even mix something like Mutants over here with Gaslands, and you know, open it up even more.
Yeah, you could definitely do like make a Mutants gang that is like your racing team, because you know in Gaslands you can have like your different sponsors or whatever, and so these are all just like racers that are sponsored by somebody, and they get into like Anchorman, you know, back alley fights in between races, trying to stay alive just in between. So I can see that being a thing. That'd be fun. Yeah.
I actually had an idea, and it was just an idea. I didn't think it was like, I don't think it's actually going to do anything, but I thought about actually like building like right there for the coffee table, just use the whole damn coffee table, build sort of like a diorama raceway or something like that for those modded up Hot Wheels cars, and then use my crappy video camera that I use for my tarot readings and just film it. Like, I mean, you will see hands just moving the cars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll see all that, and have like someone actually doing running commentary, and then having another person doing color commentary, and the whole thing would look ridiculous. It would be absurd, but it would be funny on a certain level. And I'm watching YouTube, and someone had actually like done stop motion animation of like Gaslands Dukes of Hazzard or something like
that'd
that.
Be fun, yeah.
Yeah, I'm never competing with that.
Oh no, you should definitely do it. There's this feller that I saw on YouTube. So I play solo games like Rangers of Shadow Deep and 5 Parsecs from Home. Which like in so far as like their own experience, the melding of tabletop role playing game and war game, especially in a solo experience, those games are really good. Again, 5 Parsecs from Home also has a fantasy analog called 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. So if that's something that you're into. But there's a feller on YouTube, his handle is Veiled Space. And so when he does his battle reports, it all plays out like a narrative. Like he does voices for each of the characters, and like every time one of the characters talks, he has like a little art portrait up there, and then like a readout of their text. So it's almost like do you remember like the Star Fox, when Star Fox characters help me, you know, barrel roll. It's kind of like that, where he's like, oh, they got me, and they're like their screen flashes red, and it's him like pushing his guys around and rolling the dice. But it's fun to watch. If you know the rules, which are simple enough, you could follow along with what's going on in the game. But then if you don't really, like for me, I don't always have time to watch, but I always have time to listen, because when I'm at work and I'm like wiring up outlets and stuff, I can put on Rumble or I can put on Apple Podcasts or whatever. Can't always put on YouTube. I can listen to that stuff rather than having to watch it and like still get an experience out of it. So I think it's cool. I think always if you have an idea, hey, I thought I should probably do this, just do it. You know, if anything, do it for you.
Yeah, it was one of those things. Like I still now that I know there's a guy at work who has a 3D printer and will print minis at cost or stuff like that. I'm thinking about having him make some like gates or something like that.
Yeah.
And who knows what'll come of it, because you know, I can sit there and tell you I'm tired of painting minis all day, and I am, but at the same time, I can't stop. It's just, I don't know, there's something fun about it. It might be frustrating, but there's something fun about it. So I don't mind painting post-apocalyptic pieces of terrain and stuff like that. That kind of thing doesn't bother me. I got plenty of craft sticks and stuff that I could probably cobble something together.
Well, and that's one of the fun things about skirmish games too is, you play the big battle games like Warhammer and you're painting 300 Space Marines. Like how much do you really want to see the color blue or green for salamanders? But with mutants, the max number of models that one player is going to be playing with is 7. And I mean, if the picture that you've got on the screen, look at the different genres you've got there. I mean, you've got high-tech sci-fi in the middle. You've got the kind of like Star Wars alien on the left, and then like grungy post-apocalyptic fantasy, and then the robot down at the bottom with his clearly expletive facial expression. It's a little bit of gonzo. And so that's one of the things that I really come to love about skirmish games is, you can really pick your favorite miniatures from whatever, and you can paint one at a time using reds, yellows, and pinks, and then pick up another one and be like, I really want to do just a muted foresty kind of palette, and they'll work because they're all just people trying to survive and making loose friendships, especially if you're marauders. Marauders don't stay friends. They're friends of convenience, if anything.
Yeah, I was going to say that these are, I would say these are akin to Captain Jack Sparrow when Will Turner's like, that's not fair. And he looks at him and he goes, pirates.
Pirates.
Like, you forgot what I was, bud. And of course, you got savages here. So these are the guys who have been genetically modified in 9 Ways to Sundown.
Yeah, so those are kind of like if you watch the cyberpunk anime, those are the people that did way too much and they're just gone.
Cyber psychosis, yep.
Yeah, so they've got psychosis.
And of course, we got cultists here. Now, I think this would probably be my faction just because there are so many places to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with our love for Lovecraftian horror.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you could definitely get into something like that. And you got your protectors. These are your guys like Mad Max, maybe before he
totally mad when he was a road ranger.
Yep, when he was still a cop. So definitely a protector in that. Who else? Jean-Claude Van Damme's character from Cyborg, definitely a protector. Hunters. These guys look dangerous because they're like, these are like the mountain men. These are the guys that live off the grid.
The one of the hardest things about writing games is when you come up with so again, earlier we were talking about ephemera, and ephemera is all the stuff that you really like. It's not necessarily important to the play of the game. What's most important is what we call the primary loop, and that's something that Vince Ventrella of what's the name of? So Vince Ventrella and Tabletop Minions have a tabletop games writing company, and their name is totally escaping me. But that's one of the things that he talks about is there's ephemera, and then there's your primary loop. When you're coming up with ephemera, at this point, the protectors and the hunters, those are my 2 favorite themes to play in mutants, and it's really hard to make sure that they're not getting more love or they're not more powerful than the other options.
Yeah,
and it's an easy pitfall to get into when you're making your own games or writing your own. You can get away with it when you're writing your own RPG scenarios because they're not supposed to be balanced. It's an RPG game, but when you're trying to make a semi-competitive narrative war game, you really want to balance some stuff out. And so Hunter and Protector, those were the things where it's like I wanted to make them fun because it's what I want to play, but I can't make them so much fun that the people who want to play cultists, savages, and marauders and meat was admittedly one of the hardest ones for me to write because they're kind of toe cutter from Mad Max. That's his group. That's his gang. So,
or even Lord Humongous from Mad Max 2.
Exactly, and it's weird because when I play an RPG villain, I've been in DM purgatory for a really long time. I always like making a convincing villain that's fun to fight and challenging to fight. And as much as I'm a very neutral arbiter of rules. I roll in the open. I've killed characters before. Not well. The villain has killed characters callously. I just facilitate that. So writing for villains in a tabletop war game where the intent is for, maybe it's possible that the villains are going to win and they're going to win often. That was hard for me.
And then there's this guy, obviously. Now we're getting into the mutation part. But when you're building your gang, you gotta have your leader. Then you have 6 points to hire henchmen, goons, and dregs. And these are not the same. So your henchmen are like, your left and right hand types. Yep. Goons are the people they'll send, like the Pinkertons.
Yeah.
And then your dregs are just like street level trash. These guys are expendable.
Yeah. And for the hunter, one of the things that dregs can also be is like your. I always thought that the idea of like drones or even like hunting dogs, dregs are there to kind of fill that. One of the mutant gangs that I had made was almost like a Pied Piper type character, where it was a hunter. And he didn't have any weapons of his own. He just had a bunch of like consumables that he can use to support, and then a bunch of giant rat dregs that he could send out that moved really fast.
Oh wow! So those are like pack animals almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then right here we get into the mutations. Now we're getting into like the meat of this game. So you have you got metaphysical, aberrations, and yes, tentacles are in here. You could set this on chalk, ladies and gentlemen. The entropic entities are awesome. Lockdown, lobotomies, mind mastery, elemental. Man, you just gave Cold Shoulder an entirely new meaning altogether. But imagine getting a cold shoulder and then a lava limb.
A little bit of ice, a little bit of fire.
Yeah.
Two extreme temperatures. Like a dream.
And this, I'm gonna call it right here, the Arboretum. I'm thinking you went with Poison Ivy as an inspiration for this one.
Poison Ivy, Swamp Thing, the Green Man, all of it. Yeah.
Swamp Thing, I could actually see more Swamp Thing, but when you have, let's see, the long limb, definitely Swamp Thing. His, especially in the cartoon that I remember from when I was a kid, yeah, his limbs would stretch. They've got open spores. Oh wow, that's definitely Poison Ivy influence there. Though not a bad idea to try. Tree hugging rarely calms these mutants. That's very true. Beast. This is what I really was like. I was itching to get to this. So I do have another game that was supposed to be, and this is before Palladium lost the rights to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
They took what they had, they reworked it into a game called After the Bomb.
Okay.
And so now you have these anthropomorphic creatures that have basically mutated either from human to a human-animal hybrid or from animal into human-animal hybrid. And this is what I was like, hell yeah, this is my jam right here. So it all started with trying to develop a way of talking to cats, and it wasn't long before the crazy cat lady was running gangs of feral mutants, finally sharpened razors, hunting for their next bowl of Meowlers mix. You got gouging claws, wonder swings, you got this cloaking and racked horns. I'm like, yo.
And so one of the things, because you'll see like the only reason why these mutations are broken down into different categories, like functionally, is so that way they're easy to reference within the rules. There might be a follow-up zine in the future that says, "Oh yeah, by the way," because I want to make this solo and semi-cooperative. And so one of the books that I've been wanting to do for a really long time was actually inspired by the Presidents of the United States song "Candy." Yeah, if you're familiar, there's a line in the song where it's like, "Oh, the devil, she must be a dentist with deep jawbreaker eyes," and I see her as like this villain, just super menacing, and I want to put the Candy Devil Queen inside of the mutants. So there's one of the books that I'm currently working on is like the invasion of Candy Mountain or whatever, and it's like somewhat zombie apocalypse, and then more of Paddy's Parlor childish humor, and but anyway, in those books that I want to do, because I want this to be an evergreen game, I'm going to keep on supporting it. I want to come out with new mutations, new mutant gang themes. But the other thing is I want to just evolve some of the mutation themes that I've got going on. So in the next book, there might be, in the original version of the game, there was a mutation called Centroidal Half that, you would get another set of legs and turn into like a half centaur of whatever centaur you wanted to be. And it didn't make the final cut because, like I said, working with a zine, you only have so much space.
Right. And I could even see, like, if the player couldn't decide on what the back half of the body would be, because obviously with a centaur, the upper half's going to be human, but the back half has to be something else. A table to randomly roll that would be absolutely funny.
Mm-hmm.
It could be funny if they could like just select from that table, but at the same time, what if they could randomly roll it? They're hoping for the back half of a stallion. They get the back half of a donkey instead.
Yeah, it's like that would be funny.
The mutations could easily go wrong, and that's the thing about mutation is that sometimes it can. We've already seen we've seen it with the X-Men when they came out. Like, I stopped reading when I saw there was a character named Maggot.
Oof. Okay.
I was like, yeah, I can't stand the sight of maggots. They literally make me physically ill. So now here's this character, and that's his entire gimmick, and I'm like, nah, count me out.
Can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do it, man.
That was one of the original things. There was going to be way more mutations, and there was tables for which you could randomly roll. And again, it had to be cut because in the initial play testing, creating your mutant warband was fun. It's almost the same as doing. I'm a huge fan of 3d6 down the line for rolling your stats. But when you say, yeah, we're going to do 3d6 roll down the line, and somebody shows up with their character sheet, they've got 2 or 3 18s, you're like, you're a lying sack of shit. You're not to be trusted. Yeah, you're supposed to roll here. But I rolled these at home, bro. No, you did. Yeah. Nobody did.
Yeah, nah.
So again, rolling for mutation was something that got cut, but it did get put later on in the book because there are campaign rules where you can level up your mutants. And when you level up your mutant, there is a chance that instead of getting like a stat upgrade, you can add a mutation, but that mutation is supposed to be random. So
yeah,
you get a little bit of that. And that, again, call back to I've got another thing I don't leave home without, Gamma World 7th edition.
Yeah.
But the original, all of Gamma World, you rolled for your mutations.
Yeah. And I think the same goes even for Mutant Crawl Classics, which was I'm going to say if DCC was a take on AD&D First Edition, which I keep getting conflicting reports. I keep hearing that it's BECME. I see a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Same as with OSC Classic and Advanced. I can see elements of both in there. But Mutant Crawl Classics I can see Gamma World DNA all through that. Not mutated, of course, but definitely it's there. And I do love that the mutation is randomly rolled because, you're rolling for those like Goro arms where you got
Yeah.
4 of them, and now you can start like quad wielding whatever, and all you get is this like Quato head coming from your sternum. Like, how the hell am I going to wear armor with that thing?
Yeah.
So that's the random rolling of a mutation really does kind of lend it throws it can throw a monkey wrench into your plans, or it could be a boost for your character. It just kind of depends on how you play it, and I think it's a great mechanic personally. Now we're getting into the dark stuff.
Oh yeah, so this was all of my I'm a huge fan of horror.
Definitely. I'm seeing Sanguine Thirst. I'm like, yep, it's a vampire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like the haunting hallucination, the gaseous form. The gaseous form. I kept thinking of that scene from Fright Night in the alleyway.
Yeah.
The whole thing fills up with mist, and like you can see him, and then he's gone. And oh man, that's one of my favorite movies too. Unironically, I love that film, Fright Night. So
that was it. The thing about Fright Night is when it came out, I was just a kid, and a couple of my friends had seen it, and I was like, I'm not watching it. I was a little wimp, man. I would not watch that. But you put me in front of the TV with aliens on, I was there. I can't explain it, but that was my jam. Now I hit a hard spot for horror in my late teens and through my 20s. And these days I'm watching a lot more comedy, but this guy right here, the Thing of Terror especially.
Yeah,
I kind of like how vague it is, because this one is like, it's like, okay, well, you see him, you really may not be afraid of him at first, but then suddenly he takes on some kind of quality, like he's giving off some vibe that you're like, oh yeah, I think I need someone change my shorts.
So it's funny that when you bring up the ambiguous or ambiguity. So a lot of the game is kind of specifically supposed to be ambiguous. Kind of in the forward, it talks about, because it's a miniatures game. You have to have miniatures to push around on a small table in order to play it. Even some pogs. I mean, the game will play on a 2D play space if you want it to. But it's intentionally ambiguous so that way people can use whatever models they have, because there are people who are going to be playing the game with Necromunda models are really great for mutants. They're like, I think you and I talked about Reaper has a line of chronoscope miniatures that work really well for mutants. There's going to be people who just say, like, I really like this miniature that I've got, and he's got a pistol in one hand and a sword in the other. I just want to run him. And then there are some people who look at, and this is one of those things, like I forget who it was I was talking to, but they're like, the art in 4th edition sucked. And I'm like, yes, the fantasy, but technically Gamma World 7th edition is 4th edition D&D, and this is like one of my favorite pieces of role-playing game art ever.
Here, let me put you at full screen here, because this is something I really want to show off. Let's see. Can I do? Nope, not that. Solo layout. There we go.
So in here, you can see this feller is using a meter, like a parking meter, as a two-handed mace. His armor is made of street signs. He's got a car bumper that he's using for, not a car bumper. He's using like the trunk of a car for a backpack. Meanwhile, his cockroach mutated friend, he's got meat cleavers in one hand. He's like bouncing off of a basketball hoop, and he's got a revolver in another hand. Meanwhile, they're like fighting like all sorts of death trap looking robots.
Oh,
and,
wow.
That was something that always really suited me. There's another piece of art, and this one was a redux from the Famine and Fargo. I mean, this whole expansion book was just that. And this is another one of my favorite pieces of art. She's got a sword, and she's got a yield sign as a shield. So I being heavily inspired by Gamma World, and I wish I had more books, but The only ones that survived my move halfway across the country when I was younger was the 7th edition books, and my stepbrother ended up giving me the other 2 that had gone missing.
And of course, if you like, one of the things that I really get into this when other people do it. It's one of the reasons I started watching like tabletop channels like Black Magic Craft and many others. And I still obsessively watch them, even though I'm looking around my place and I'm like, my place is way too small. I'm never going to be, I'm not going to be hoarding miniatures. I'm not going to be making tons of terrain. One of the things that I've been doing, like, I do tend to drink a lot of bottled water, but I started saving the bottle caps.
Hey, I heard you could buy video games with those. Did you ever see that? Yeah, did you ever see that? There was like a college kid that collected a bunch of bottle caps and shipped them to Bethesda. Like, I don't know how much this is worth, but I was thinking maybe I could buy Fallout 4 with bottle caps. And then Bethesda was like, seems fair. Here's your free limited edition copy of Fallout 4.
Holy crap. Now, were these the metal bottle caps?
Yeah, or they were like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Budweiser, or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, that makes some sense. Okay. I get that, because for Fallout, that's exactly what the currency is.
Mm-hmm.
And even, I think that was something the basic expert, John, he put the same thing roughly in his Atomic Punk 2160 game, which, yeah, because it's Fallout with the serial numbers filed off for the tabletop. And I was like, you could even mix that with it. Now, this is, this used to hold tea, but that's why I love tins, man. You could just reuse them endlessly. But I went ahead and just I started saving bottle caps. And when these come off, I started saving these as well, because I'm going to paint these little rings and make them condition markers for the actual minis I've got. And
very cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
they also make really good cat toys.
I've found that out the hard way. Yeah, Bub loves to play with those, but unfortunately, we don't let him, because they're small. If he wants a Gatorade bottle cap, fine, I'll let him have it. It's no problem, but not these. But I mean, if you're like kind of tight on a budget, you really can't afford to gather those miniatures. Just start like saving your bottle caps, and use a Sharpie. If nothing else, at least you will have fun playing the game until you can start getting the minis and painting them, or not. It doesn't matter to me. I've looked at my unpainted minis and went, I'm going to try one. I'm going to try painting one. I went and got some cheap craft paints and cheap brushes from Walmart and went at it. And
all I use, like, I do my painting stream, and admittedly, I got a little bougie. When I got money to spend, I bought some paints. But my friend Miranda, Wargamer Girl on YouTube, all she painted with for the longest time was cheap Walmart paintbrushes, and I think they're apple barrel paints, the 69-cent bottles you buy from Walmart.
Oh yeah,
she built her channel off of those paints, man. But don't ever be afraid. They might take a little extra coats. You might have to paint a little longer, but nothing's holding you back now.
Well, I can honestly say, when it comes to painting minis, with the monsters, it's not a problem, because they're going to look, they're probably going to look run down. They're going to have very basic colors, very basic color schemes. When it comes to painting the hero minis, though, I'm saving them for dead last, because I'm like, those I want looking really good. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to be like, I'm probably going to be there with my hand like, damn it, I dotted that I wrong. I'm going to be like that. But, like, I don't know what it is about. I understand my miniatures only have to be serviceable, because I'm just using them for my solo games. And if you've seen them, they're on the blog. There's pictures of them. And you've seen some of the unpainted ones too, because I was like, well, I need a goblin and I haven't gotten around to it. So guess what? You're going in unpainted, get in there.
And that works too. Yeah.
It works. Yeah, it works just fine. I mean, for Pete's sake, when I had to use a small dragon, I got this little dollar store. Here, I'll solo. Oh, there we go.
I love him.
Yeah, that was my small dragon for like 3 rooms, and that was it. I was just like, I don't care. I'm gonna do this anyway. But I was actually able to take. Where did I put him? I know he was up here somewhere, but I must have put him away. But no, I didn't. I took a dollar store Skeletor that was actually broken. When I bought it, it was broken, and I made.
Dude, that's metal.
I love.
What is he just missing his hand?
Well, yeah. Well, his hand was broken, so I just laid it there. So his power staff is laying there, with his hand on the deck there. And I put those skulls in his hand and at
Where'd
his
you get
feet.
the skulls from?
It was from a guy on Etsy. He actually gave me a small pack of skulls with some bits that I had purchased for the cars that I was modding.
Oh, those skulls look sweet. I think that was a good ad.
They were a great addition.
There's something about drinking from the skulls of your enemies. It's incredibly green.
And then when you put like one of those little hero miniatures up next to it, that thing is much bigger.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great because in the Cull stories, this is Soul for Doom right here, ladies and gentlemen. So I was thinking, make it, and the cape was not on the figure at all. I literally made that out of cardboard.
Nice. Great ad.
I cut it out of cardboard. I glued 2 beads to his shoulders to make the anchor points for it. And yeah, this was pretty much it. That's
really great. I think you did a good job. That could be a good cultist gang leader right there.
Or basically the statue that the cult is bowing to.
We're not worthy.
And he's like, no, you're not.
Well, it's one of the things that you were saying is like, you don't really have a lot of the time or the space to have a bunch of terrain with a bunch of miniatures. And, especially in this economy, we don't have a lot of money for miniatures. And so one of the things that I'm working on is making like paper doll minis. I really want to, it's like some of the doodles that you see in Mutants. I want to scale them down and put them on Big Geek Emporium for you to be able to print. Maybe, if anything, if you don't even have an at-home printer, maybe you could go to the library and print off for 10 cents a page or whatever it is. Basically and that's a lot of the reason why my books are pay what you want, because I know what it was like growing up, not having a whole lot of money. And even right now, I went and forsaken a multinational, multi-trillion-dollar company and took an $18 an hour pay cut and said no to a $100,000 a year job because it was for a company I didn't like working for, to go be an electrician's apprentice.
Yeah.
So I don't even have a whole lot of money right now to be buying games. That, and one of my goals is to make affordable games for people that want to share this with their family, their friends, their kids, or maybe they did it a really long time ago. One of the things that I always have nightmares about is I used to see all these Facebook posts of people that, I've fallen on hard times. I have to sell my collection. I have to sell my books, or I have to sell my miniatures. And it just pains me. I'm like, no, don't do that. You don't have to keep up with like Games Workshop. It's like every 6 months, I know it's not exactly 6 months, but every 6 months they're coming out with new books. And it's like, oh, great. I just spent $60 on this book. No, just go to Big Geek Emporium, look up Paddy's Parlor Games, download Mutants, and you'll have all the Necromunda fun you could ever want right there. I'm coming out with Die 10, which will be an RPG system, kind of in the vein of GURPS as far as generalness. Of course, I've got my Chalt zines, so the Boy From Mezteha'as, the Skeeveteer. That'll I don't know what the pricing is for that, because I've actually got Lord Mezteha'as and the Red Room trying to help me out with that. So I would like to give them something for their efforts because they deserve that. And what an honor to have those guys help me out. But anyway, Paddy's Parlor poppers, something about alliterations. People that want to play games that don't have the means to be buying, big name stuff. That's what I want to do. I want to help people have fun at their tabletop without breaking their bank. I don't want them to have to choose feeding themselves versus playing games. Why can't you have both? Why not both?
And I'm about to bring up, so here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Yeah, right here. Because I'm going to drop this screen for just a moment. Mainly because I want to share this one. So let me share that. Let's do the Big Geek Emporium store right here.
Hey, there it is.
And we've got Die 10 Light, we've got Mutants, and we got the Boy From Mezteha'as right there. And guess what? Look at that. Cost you nothing.
Free.
Free.
And like if you have means and you have dollar dues, and let's say you did the demo, right? You went. Do you remember the days of the demo discs or the demo games?
Those, yeah.
Right. You've got that option. You could demo it if you like it. You could buy it for monies, or at the very least, give me some reviews. Now, one of those I shall say, Herndon Ray, that's my brother. So, I love him and I'm appreciative for him. But getting a 5-star review from somebody that I don't know at all, the Bro Henderson, first off, thank you so much for the review. One of the things that I would like to do as the parlor for Big Geek Emporium is, as you can see, there's a severe lack of reviews being written. And one of the unfortunate things on Big Geek is you actually have to purchase the product in order to write a review. So I've purchased a couple of Miguel and Sylvia's things on the Red Room, and I've written reviews for those. And man, if there was a way to give like a 4.5 or a 4.9, I'm afraid to give that like 5-star review myself, because it's like all their stuff is fantastic and they deserve the review, they deserve the effort of the recognition. And eventually I know they're going to come out with something. I'm like, this is a 5-star game. And even I'm looking at people who give me 5-star reviews, and I'm like, oh, come on. I know my game isn't
syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. This is not a perfect game. It's a good game. I think it's a good game. I've spent a lot of time, a lot of play testing, a lot of editing and art went into it. So I think it's a solid 4-star. But anyway, there's not a lot of reviews on Big Geek Emporium, and I would love for there to be more reviews. So eventually, so I live where it's still kind of cold. I would like to do giveaways where I'm printing 3D models, and I'm like the 30th person to write a review this week is going to get a 3D printed and painted model from Paddy's Parlor to say thank you for supporting Big Geek Emporium.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like Joe and Randy, and I really appreciate them. I cannot believe that they're still running Big Geek Emporium with 0 commissions. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how anyone can publish on Drive-Thru RPG and getting the R word for 35 to 40% of their sale. Like James Raggy, because of the stupid manufactured drama that happened today, he decided to sell every book that has to do with anything Lamentations at what was it, $1.25?
$1.25, yeah.
So 35-40% of that is going to be he's getting 75 cents off of each purchase for the next week. What's today? Today's
Thursday the 11th, so he'll be done with that on the 18th.
I think he said the 16th, right?
Or 16th, yeah.
Yeah. So for the next 5 days, he's going to be making literally 70 cents on the dollar off of all of his products, and that blows my mind. He could be doing the sale on Big Geek Emporium and capturing every cent, while at the same time helping build an alternative. What is it? They call it a parallel economy.
Yeah.
And to have James Raggy, that's how you pronounce his name, right? Raggy. It's not Raggy. Yeah. Raggy the Third. To have him on a place like Big Geek Emporium, or you have Giant Slayer. He's doing his own website. Having him published there would be such a great draw. And the only really thing that worries me is, if it's something as simple as saying, hey, I looked back 20 years into this guy's past and realized that he said something like, "Women, am I right? We're so sorry. We're pulling his work from our studio. We'll never appreciate the damage that we've done by supporting this person, but we're moving forward with dignity." Shut up. No, you're not. I think that was the reason why my post was like, no, the simple fact that you even affiliated yourself with them, you might as well be rounding people up. It's ridiculous.
It is. Like when I saw that flash sale, I just kind of went, oh,
yeah.
Because I'm personally on an active boycott against Drive-Thru RPG, unless if it's free stuff, they don't get anything anyway. So I'll go and download that. But like I can't, in good conscience, support a business that violated it. They set a policy, and then they violated it, and they violated it because of a violation. It's like, no, two wrongs don't make a right, guys. If you're going to make the rules, you need to abide by them. And had they just issued the warning, I don't think I would have liked it, but at least there was that. And personally, I've recommended this a couple times to, I've kind of thrown this out there where I've said, that's going to get banned. You might want to just move it over here, sell it on your website, make it one of those, make it a website exclusive, make it a Big Geek exclusive, something like that. It works a lot better. And that way, if anybody's saying, hey, I saw this over on your website, why isn't it up on Drive-Thru? You'd be like, there's no way they'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, and
you can kind of counter that.
And just to add on to that, it's like, what's the biggest complaint? And I'm like this close to name dropping somebody because they have the pull, they have the name, they have the notoriety in order to drive good traffic, and you kind of deserve the discomfort that's coming towards you. But this whole idea of like, well, they don't drive traffic, they don't do this, they don't get this number of views. Well, yeah, dude, because you've got what's the two biggest names on Big Geek Emporium, and that's not to sling mud at anybody. Maybe the three biggest names you have: the Basic Expert, Venger Satanis, who still hasn't uploaded like his actual flagship stuff, and the Red Room. And the Red Room uploads all of their stuff, and they're probably one of the most notorious people that are on Big Geek Emporium. And what's a big shame is there's no reason for the notoriety. They should be endeared. They should be honored and loved. And that's the same thing with Venger. And Venger, perhaps he deserves ire like I do, because we produce anti-woke stuff, like specifically anti-woke stuff. So we kind of, what was it I said today? If that's the route you want to take, be prepared to face the consequences. I'm prepared to face the consequences because I make games that I want to play, and if other people want to play them, that's awesome, and I want them to enjoy that. That's part of the reason why I make them free, because I'm going to make the game whether you buy it or not. Yeah. So
you're going to be the one playing the game too.
Yeah. I can take the hit. Play. But whatever that company was, because I had never heard of them until they decided to make the statement. I was like, I could have drifted peacefully for the rest of my life, having never known you existed.
Exactly.
Then you had to go do this.
And here's the thing. Like I said, I said this in an earlier video from yesterday. Yesterday for me, but today still for you. I said this in my bonus video. I said, I had to go look and see who the hell they were.
Exactly.
And they had created like a lot of these little zine type mothership supplements that had this happened, and had it happened quietly, as it does with a lot of companies. I could tell you there's a guy I worked with, in our photo lab. He'd been with the company, over 10 years. I can tell you that. Had a lot of experience and handled photo very well. When he really applied himself, he was doing great things. A lot of our clients loved him. One day he's suddenly gone, but I didn't know the reason why he was let go. I just knew that he was let go. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm telling them when they come in. They're looking at me like I know more than what I'm letting on. I'm like, no, that's it. It's not my business. But at no point did the company suddenly do this big press release about how they let this guy go. They just let him go. And had that happened, I probably would have picked up some more mothership supplements, because some of them look pretty good, and they'd have been featured on my mail call, because number one, they're an independent studio. Number two, they produce stuff that I was interested in. And then they did something so childish and put it on full display, so unprofessional, that I was like, you've just ensured the money you could have made off of me. Maybe it wouldn't have been much, but it would have been more than what you have right now. It would have been more than what you're going to get. And you just blew that. That's insane to me.
And it is a shame, too, because it's like you were saying, some of their stuff is good products, and they deserve to be bought, whether or not I agree with you. Or them, I should say, whether or not I agree with them, because good work deserves compensation.
True.
But at the same time, if you're gonna solely the deal, and like I said, knowing full well that because I advertise that any money that people choose to give for the Boy From Mezteha'as, that specifically goes to Gays Against Groomers. I've already talked to them and worked something out with them where that money goes to them. And for better or for worse, that's what it is. Otherwise, you can download it for free. You don't have to give money to them for that cause. But like we were saying earlier, don't preach to me. Don't tell me. Don't Anita Sarkeesian me. Tell me I'm better than you.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of us are better than anyone else. We're all just striving to be better than who we were yesterday. And I don't know. The point being is that some of my stuff is going to be specifically anti-woke. And it's not that I see it anti-woke. Other people are going to say that. I see it as good American values for rational, reasonable people who are maybe a little bit tired of being told how to live their life antithetical to how they've lived their life up until this point. I think that it might be a little too cold for me to say, like, I think there's a market for that. But I think that there are people out there who kind of exist in our space that say, I would really like to play TTRPGs, but they're not the same that I remember. What was the name of the book where the cover was a mostly nude woman laying on like an altar of sacrifice?
Eldritch Wizardry.
Eldritch Wizardry. You know, they grew up playing Eldritch Wizardry during the Satanic Panic, and they're like, this is the anti-establishment underground game that I want to play. This is the culture that I want. And now they're being fed all this stuff that's like, you need to like this and you need to want this. And it's like, I don't need any of that. I just want to play my game. And sometimes that kind of breeds one of two things. One, you get people like me who are just kind of really fed up with that say, no, okay, since you've created the standard for which this exists, now I just want to be specifically, in opposition to that, because because you can't just go totally unopposed. I love balance. I crave balance. I think that's a lot of what of our problem is these days, is we just can't balance things out. But on the other hand, you get this other subsect of people that are like, all of these voices are being lifted and amplified and spoken so loudly that you're like, okay, that's what this hobby is. It's not for me anymore. If that's where we've gone, I don't want to go there, and I'm going to do something else. And for some people, again, like me, who have spent a good majority of their life enjoying this stuff, saying, well, hold on now, that's not who I am. If I can light the beacons of Gondor and say, there is a safe harbor for you if you come this way, and we can meet somewhere in between, and I'll even like walk across the border and say, hey, this is really good stuff. We need to talk about this. But the last thing I want to do is just alienate people who are like hard nose, because they deserve better too, and they still deserve to know that they're not alone. What is this? All this inclusivity talk. There's a post today where it's like we're intentionally being exclusive to disabled people, and then you get like Victor Gorbachev and Grim Jim Desborough and Giant Slayer. They're all, and Crafty Matt, we're all like, I'm disabled. What are you talking about? I'm disabled. Who even are you to tell me that I'm being, ostracized from my own community that I've helped build? Nothing, Jon Snow. So I don't know. Like, the last thing that I want to do is to make people feel like I'm the only one, like, that thinks the way that I think. No, I mean, even the Boy of Mezteha'as, for as critical of a parody as it is of a certain sect of humans. I mean, I was in high school performing in drag races for Relay for Life, trying to get money for cancer patients. Mm-hmm. I was going to Rocky Horror Picture Show and performing on stage. I don't really need you to tell me what's right and what's wrong, or what's good for me. But I know what's moral, and I know that sometimes what's being passed for that just ain't it.
Yeah, and I mean, even me, as pale as I am, got cast as Sitting Bull during a high school production because I was the guy with long hair. That was literally the only qualification. It was just like, oh, we've got a part for you. Oh yeah, what is it? Sitting Bull. Really? Have you seen how pale I am? It's like, I don't get a lot of sun. In fact, I if anything, I had a farmer's tan at most, but I got cast, and so there's my pasty white ass and nothing but this vest and long hair, headband, tan to here, tan from here down. That was about it. And of course I also burned. So, but that was it. The whole thing was a melodrama. I had fun doing it. I didn't mind. I also got cast as a Lieutenant Dan style Vietnam vet, because I could hold my legs under me and sit in a wheelchair and do that. It was never seen as like cultural appropriation or anything negative. It was just, this is what we kind of need. This is how we're going to do it. And I mean, fuck, I was doing an acting job on stage, and that was it. So, those kinds of things. I'll be straight up with you. My own stance on characters in gaming, I'm going to say this: the combat wheelchair and wheelchair accessible dungeon in D&D makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever.
So wheelchair dungeon, I will say no to, but I like playing Mud Core. Mm-hmm. And in Die 10 core, which is what I'm working on, why it's called Die 10 is your character can die 10 times. You don't actually die 10, but
right.
Being a paraplegic is something you can get because having magic for which you can heal yourself is not common, if at all, ever. But in fantastic worlds like the Forgotten Realms, you're going to tell me in the Forgotten Realms that there isn't a cleric out there that can heal you?
Yeah.
Oh, but what if I'm like Professor Xavier, where I have this one ability? Oh, I guess, but
I'm not buying it.
he lives like that because that's the one argument that I always see that kind of holds water is he's like Professor Xavier, where if he can walk he loses his power, and it's like, yeah, but he also, like, that's his mutation. That's not an effect of him being able to be healed.
That's it. Yeah.
So
but if you give me a game like Cyberpunk, for example, or even Shadowrun, or Modern Age, or Savage Worlds, Amazing Adventures, something like that, then it makes sense. It's still a fantasy world. It's just a different type of fantasy in which we're engaging, but it makes sense. You can suspend some disbelief. You can have the there's a character that I had, and I lost the character sheet, but I do remember the character in my head. The headcanon on this guy was he went by the hacker name Nicky Six Guns.
Ooh, Nicky Six, huh?
Nicky Six Guns. Yeah. But he had, like, he was cocky. He was good at what he did. But during a job, he got a little overconfident. The ice got him, and it nearly fried him out completely. Like he was nearly gone. And now he's like I took a look at him. I was like, I'm gonna make him an NPC for one of my games. That's because cool. now he's in an actual chair. He refuses to get cybernetic legs. He's like, I'm not going into debt to fucking Arasaka. And he's got this like mechanized wheelchair. Now his hacking is done by like traditional means. He's still good at it, but he keeps a low profile. And he's got a real Mick Mars attitude. If you've ever seen The Dirt, I forget the actor's name, Ewan Rion, I think his name was. That kind of attitude, that is exactly what he's like. He is just like, all right, assholes, look, I'm going to guide you through this once, so you're going to listen to exactly what I say when I fucking say to do it. All right, security cameras off of you, move now. Get the fuck out of the alcove and fucking move. He's like, just really like sharp tongued because he's bitter.
Well, he's seen some shit. He's had some shit.
Yeah, he's been through some shit. He's bitter. So that kind of a character, I think, when you're talking about like just representation of disabled people, I think that kind of thing, if a player was like, hey, I'd love to play that character, I'd be like, okay, this is kind of what I had pictured for him. I want to see what direction you take it in, though. Go ahead. Here you go. Play on. Modern Age would work because that's set in the modern day. The Savage Worlds, Amazing Adventures, those kinds of games. Genesis, even, because you're building your entire game from the ground up.
Have you ever heard of a game called Malifaux or Through the Breach?
I've heard of Through the Breach.
So Through the Breach is based off of the world of Malifaux, and there's a family in there called let's see, her name is Perdita. I can't remember the name of the actual family, but she's like a guild mercenary that lives on the border of civilized society in Malifaux. So basically the way it works, it's alternate history Earth imagine like Wild Wild West with Will Smith.
Yeah.
And then like take H.P. Lovecraft mythos, dump it on there, mold it into a cookie dough, and then bake a giant birthday cookie cake. So that's Malifaux and Through the Breach. But like she has like the grandpa character that runs around in like a steampunk wheelchair, with guns mounted onto the side of it. And he's just mowing down people because he's this salty fucking soldier who's just really tired of gremlins trying to make their way into the city.
The one thing I couldn't stand about Santa Clara, all the goddamn vampires.
Yeah. And so again, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess I could say I've personally done it because being DM Purgatory, I've had to play female characters. But this idea where it's like you need to carve out a space specifically for me. No, it's not like that. As a DM, I don't have to do that. You need to carve out a space for you. And if you want to play a character that's in a wheelchair, I can make that happen for you. But this whole entitled thing where it's like, no, I need to be, the Mary Sue. I need to be the main character. I need to be the one that gets the spotlight. I need to be the one that's able to go to a dungeon and find a ramp. No, if in a world of fantasy gaming, you could be anything that you want to be. You could be the opposite of what you want to be if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be the one that says, I want to play a character that's in a wheelchair, by all means, you're allowed to do that. But you're going to have to face challenges as a character in a wheelchair. There's nothing wrong with that. You should want to play a character that's challenging like that. Because, again, I love playing Mudcore. I like playing high mortality games that rarely see past a certain level because I want characters to sweat when they make decisions. And
what I think really the thing is, like, I don't really have a problem with I have a book, Arcanus for 5e Runic Edition. Mm-hmm. I've been through that book. It has gods who are genderless. To me, that makes sense. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't care. Sense. This water god comes out of the water and it has no gender. You have no idea what its fucking pronouns are.
It's literally gender fluid.
It's literally gender fluid. I don't have a problem with that because it makes sense. If you've ever seen the first 3 Prophecy movies, and I'm going to say the first 3 with Christopher Walken, in my opinion, those are the best ones. The other 2 were okay. One of them you had Doug Bradley playing Lucifer, so there's something to check out. They just weren't quite. They didn't have the same feel. But in the very first one, there's this dead, guy in the coroner's lab there, and the detective in this coroner, detective's questioning him, and the coroner's giving him all these facts about him that are just oddball. He's like, all right, so where are his eyes? Were they stuck in the grill of a car or what? He goes, oh, that's the thing. He never had any. What? And he's like, oh, his physiology was this, that, and the third. Was that normal? Yeah, normal for an aborted fetus. The fuck? And he goes, oh, and check this out. He's a hermaphrodite. Oh! So now and then they revisit those facts. When the coroner is talking to another character and he's saying, I've got these bodies, they're hermaphroditic, they're dead, they have the tissue of aborted fetal cells. I don't know what to think. And then he's sharing what he learned about them, and that they're angels. So they're going to have human appearance, but not very human traits and characteristics. But these are the things that add. They're the spice. They're the flavor to it. They're not the all-encompassing factor. So I think when we're talking about having a gay character does not bother me. I was 3.5. I actually got to retire a barbarian character. I think I retired him at about level 7 to 10, somewhere in there, because I knew I was about at the end of my career. I was gonna, I was ending my career at the prison. I was going to be moving up here to the Northeast, and I knew I wasn't going to be around long. So I wanted to kind of end it. We had a good place to cap it. This barbarian character who had spent his life in the wild, fell for this librarian, and he promised he would come back for her. He did. He came back and he settled down. And the hand wavy story was they had kids. They're happy together. So if there's a straight relationship there, I don't really see a problem with a gay character, but the problem that I have is this obsession with these characters, and both sides are guilty of it. On one hand, you've got the insistence that there absolutely must be this, these 300, how many genders are there now? I don't know.
I identify as an Apache attack helicopter, and the only thing I identify is targets.
So, you have that insistence, and then on the other side of things, and I've seen one game with this.
Is that Thirsty Sword lesbians?
There's the Thirsty Sword lesbians, and then there's Mifrog. thirsty sword lesbians. They want to turn straight people and all this other crap. And then in Mithorog, homosexuals are sacrificed to Tyr in a bog so that they never resurrect. And I'm like, why do you people care so much about who's fucking who?
So,
it makes no sense.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to come across in The Boy From Mezteha'as, because I knew one of the immediate criticisms, if I ever gained enough popularity for people to really take a look and talk about it, was, oh, this person's a homophobe. Negative. That's a big negative. So I'm going to be that guy. Some of my best friends were gay. Anyway, beside the point. And and they were, and it has nothing to do with that. It really has to do with Jeff Younger's story. If you're familiar with Jeff Younger, he's the guy in Texas who his estranged ex-wife kidnapped his child, moved to California, and is, yeah, I see that eyebrow raise. Yeah, if you're not familiar,
no,
she was some sort of psychiatrist. And
okay, I know the story. Yeah, go ahead. Now I'm bringing up Elliot.
She's taken this male child and has, only when she's in custody of the child after their divorce, said that's a girl. No, he's not, because when he was over here, he says he's a boy. It's only when he's around you. And so really, The Boy From Mezteha'as, the theme of it has to do with these people who, and there's a couple of people on Twitter that I follow, like I think her name is Frostfire Flame or whatever. She always calls out trenders. It has to do with these people who kind of use adolescent children as their own affirmation, the mommy Munchausens, because it's just not fair to the child. We can't have these people who still are trying to figure out life go through these changes that they can't repair. One of my favorite songs is from this band called Stray Light Run, and it's called Cover Your Ears. And in that song, I mean, this is a lefty liberal band that sings, oh, we must care for these little ones. We have to save them from these terrible people and the terrible ideas that they have. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not about trans people. It's not about gay people. That's the reason why the whole book opens up with, hey, all these gay dudes came and made this town where they had drag shows and they loved each other thoroughly and fully and sincerely. And there's even an event in there where you try to help a gay dwarf couple escape town because, you guys were supposed to do these drag shows. No, we're not going to do these drag shows. It's not for you. It's that, how dare you think that you can just take this? And then what's the other one that we always talk about is like, why don't you guys fight against child beauty pageants? Yes, because again, I was 16, 17 dressing in drag and doing Rocky Horror Picture Show. I realize now that was not a good place for me to be. So, it has nothing to do with what your sexuality is or who you want to love, so long as we're, doing the best that we can to protect the most vulnerable among us. And when it comes to these character ideologies where it's like, I want to be, or I want to write about a gay person, and that's their entire personality.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that because I'm gay. No, I want to hear that you can't do that because, you're at 0 HP, or I want to hear that you can't do that because you're not a wizard. I don't want to hear that because, oh, I'm gay. That's one of the most disrespectful things that you could say about an entire category of living people, people entirely.
And even growing up during the 90s, one of the things I noticed with most people, it didn't matter what group they came from. Most people actually just kind of wanted to live their own lives. They didn't want really any outside interference of any kind, but they had to hide quite a bit of their personal lives from the public because they knew the public would suddenly move to interfere. Mm-hmm. And it seems like before the whole push was just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Well, let's just leave them alone. Let them do their thing. They're entitled to all the same rights and privileges as I am. I think when the gay marriage thing came up, my argument was when people were arguing against it, I was like, okay, so you want a two-tiered system.
Yeah.
Because what you're telling me is because I am straight, I can marry a woman. Then we go through the divorce. Should such a thing happen. We go through the divorce. Now I have to pay her. I have to give up half the stuff that I've worked for. I'm going to be out on my ass because these courts do not favor me at all. Unless there's something wild that pops up, like she doesn't have representation or something like that, and the judge is just like, well, she gets nothing. And I've seen it happen once or twice, not very often. But those were exceptions to the rule. The rule was, oh yeah, you're going to be paying this, that, the third. And it gets messy. So you're telling me that I am so special that I can go through that. However, two guys, two women, they can get together and then they can just work that out for themselves. Absolutely no interference whatsoever. You say that you're going to spare them that. So the law does not apply evenly.
See, and my big thing, I remember one of these days I'm going to find my high school yearbook and I'm going to take a picture of my D&D club and this whole thing of like, oh, we need to be diverse and this and that. You'll take a picture. I didn't have to advertise for diversity, and I was part of the what is that? The Gay Straight Alliance, the GSA. I was part of that, and I remember I got kicked out because it was one of those things where I was like, "What? Wait, you guys want to be government sanctioned, married in a church? Yeah, because we deserve that. Why would you want to be married in a church that doesn't accept you? What? Like, why would you want to give them that honor? This is supposed to be one of the greatest moments of your life. It's it's supposed to be like a sanctimonious thing for you, and you want to have the government force a church who doesn't want you to be there. Why you could have it anywhere else, a place that wants you, that wants to honor the ceremony of it and do all that. And that's the way you want to do it. You don't deserve. Nobody deserves that. I wouldn't walk into a Buddhist temple, that absolves themselves of marriage and then try to have myself married in there. Because it's not part of the religion. Why would I want to solely the sanctity, the ceremony of my marriage? If I want to do a hand tying ceremony, forever tethering my soul to this other person in a place that doesn't want me there, that's not a good start for my relationship.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's one of those things that it's when I say it doesn't make sense, it's because it's become so unreasonable. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the louder the two minority factions get on either side, the more they are. It seems like they're not content to fight against each other. They just want to grab everybody that they can and pull them to either extreme. And if you won't go to either extreme, to both of them, they want to unperson you. And it's like, that's not going to happen.
Slope. I remember fighting the slippery slope. If we allow this one thing, then they're going to want to marry animals, or worse, they're going to want to do something to children. And it's like, that's never going to, you're ridiculous. That's not what this is about at all.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
No, wait, hold on. We can still have both. Go back. What the hell is going on? No, stop.
Now, what happened here? And let me tell you, if as averse to pedophilia or bestiality as I am, I can tell you there are societies that and societies here in America that have even more of an aversion to it, and they're called prisons. And let me tell you, when someone goes to prison with those kinds of charges, you can forget anything about respect at all. I mean, forget it. Like you could have some guy who killed 6 people, chopped them up, stitched their limbs all kind of skewed in some weird twisted portrait of a mockery of a prayer to some weird deity. That guy will get mad respect if he whacks out someone who, did something untoward to a child. I mean, absolutely. Like if he just breaks off a broomstick and beats the guy to death, yeah, he might be going to the hole. He might be getting transferred. He might be losing a lot of good time, but he is going to be celebrated. And it's not a good thing to go down on. I'm just saying, so if you think people just speaking out or speaking their minds or saying, look, you need to be a whole hell of a lot more reasonable because you're going way out there. If you think that's intolerant, you haven't seen a thing yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying right now, those laws should not change at all. But when it comes to these games, especially when people are arguing for representation, I keep pointing to Numenera, and I'm like, Numenera has the absolute most, representation of just about any and everyone in that game. Why is it not flying off the shelf?
Is that not Planescape? Isn't that not part of like the Planescape Torment universe?
As far as I know, I'll be honest with you, I know about it from people who have read it, and they're telling me about it. I never checked it out because, again, I'm kind of looking at my books going, do I really need another set of rules for fantasy at this point? Because it's making up a majority of my collection.
Yeah, and it's like you said, I think once upon a time I would have been considered a wokey leftist, but where everything's gone from then, it's so far and beyond. Like saying aberration isn't even doing it a justice from what it was. It's just a mockery of what civilized society should be. And sometimes I'm like, man, like I said earlier, I'm all about balance. And I think we're going back to the point of what Robert E. Howard would say. It's like, this is the price we pay to live in a civilized society. In a civilized society, the perpetrator assumes that he's not ever going to face punishment for his slights against reasonableness or even humanity. And when he finally does, then it's a monstrosity on the part of the righteous. I
can't remember who said it, but I think it was Oscar Wilde. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, "Those who can get you to believe absurdities will have you committing atrocities."
That might have been Oscar Wilde, but I know Bonhoeffer said a lot of the same thing. And Bonhoeffer was the guy who said, one smart person will never be able to stand up against 10 stupid people. Bonhoeffer was the guy who cried out to the people who were living under, Hitler's regime when the National Socialists were going around and corralling people up. He was speaking out against them, Bonhoeffer was. And he was one of the people that died right before American soldiers could save him. And it's incredibly sad. And it's the reason why people like it. It's the reason why I'm appreciative that you exist. It's the reason why I'm appreciative that people like Venger exist. They're these Bonhoeffers at the precipice of, being faded into obscurity, or if not, let's hope that there's never a day where people are actually being hoisted off to gulags again. But there's you guys are these Bonhoeffers that are crying out into the void saying, I need people on my side. I need people to, realize that they're not islands to be conquered, that we're a nation, undivided, that we're here to, protect American and constitutional principles because,
for everyone.
Yeah.
Not just one group or another, for everyone.
For centuries, for a millennia before this great American experiment, there, subjugation existed. And, around the time of the mid 20th century, so 1950s, a little bit before then, a couple decades before then, we've slowly allowed ourselves to become more subjugated. And it's something that we should all be just a little bit more aware of. And we're not going to win that unless we win the culture war. And
I think my argument, and this was like one of my points of contentions with a group that I was a member of for a while, because they were really out into the far left of the political spectrum, and many of them didn't like. There was really, and there still is, nothing really inflammatory in my tarot readings. And the way I approach my tarot readings is, I'm getting a message here.
I need to watch your tarot readings. Admit it, like as a side note, I've always been afraid of divination because, one, I want it always to be a surprise, and two, I'm like, wait, I don't want to dive too hard into it that I make the opposite happen.
Yeah.
So I've always been like super afraid of watching. But anyway,
the whole point of me doing these videos, it was kind of because I'm a little too lazy to do journaling.
Okay.
And number two, if I was going to fail, I wanted everybody to see it. If I was going to succeed, I wanted everybody to see it. So it was kind of
rolling in the open.
Rolling in the open, dealing the cards. There it goes. And I made this point, and this caused a little bit of a stir. Nothing terrible, but it caused a bit of a stir. And that was, I told people, listen, it's like this. The illusion's crumbling. Matrix is glitching. Holodecks on the fritz. There are going to be people that are going to just look around. Go watch your news. Go look. Read. Look at the headlines. People are scrambling like mad to prop this thing up, and it's never going to stand. The best thing you can do is empower yourself. Mm-hmm. Once you're empowered, no one can take it away from you. No one can stop you. When you come into your own power, that's it. The game is over. You've won. That's all. But you cannot live in the prison of what other people will think. And that was one of the things that, that's just kind of how I operate. It's like I'm so I came through the satanic panic. I came through some beatings too, man. Got scars, and that's why I'm shifting so much, is because I got little nagging injuries that, there or injuries from then. They're starting to bother me today. And the way I look at it is, okay, I could look at that and go, I'm a victim. I'm in a minority religion. I've got light sensitivity just about out the ass, and I got my ass kicked during that panic. I was harassed, had to fight for jobs. Yeah, I could say, yeah, I'm a victim. I need that kind of attention. But there's just one problem with that. The whole thing was designed to get me to stop. Mm-hmm. And that failed miserably. Maybe there were a couple times I managed to succeed, and then I was like, dude, I'm fucking miserable. If I'm going to be miserable, I'm going to have at least some spot of happiness. And I'd start pushing back. I'd be like, no, you don't get to tell me any of that. And so, yeah, sometimes I was miserable, but when I came back to the books, or I came back to the movies, or I came back to the music, there we go. I'm good. I'm good again. Now I've got those moments of happiness at least. So now I'm clinging on to that. That is where you begin to find your power. When you come out of that, when you realize these people screwed up because they came into the wrong area. When they got into movies, I can't make a movie. I don't have that kind of equipment. Don't know how to write a screenplay. When they tried getting into metal, the metalheads kicked them out. Mm-hmm. The metal is so loud and offensive. That's the point. Always has been, always will be. Unless you're glam metal, that might be more your speed, which I don't mind. I listen to some of it myself. Motley Crue, Cinderella, that sort of thing. I listen to it still to this day. Poison, to me, is a great band. They had great music. They were just kind of a victim of the age, really. When they stepped into this, they stepped into an area where people made their own stuff constantly. Some of us had to operate with very little. And when we had those little pieces of official, stuff, it kind of helped us, kind of stirred our imaginations, propelled us forward. When we had books that we were like, hey, we could just rip this off. We could rip that off and maybe rename it. We'll file that serial number off. we're so used to that that's what we'll do. They're like, oh, if you don't like it, well, then go make your own. Cool.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. We're making our own. And they're so pissed off about it that they're trying to cancel out that. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Because it's not just up to a publishing company to look at the manuscript and then say, yes, we'll publish this, or no, we won't. It's not up to bookstores to go, yeah, we'll carry that, or no, we won't, because now we have this wonderful tool right here. We can publish it. We can put it out there. Maybe nobody buys it. Maybe a whole bunch of people download it for free. Who knows? But the point is, it's a niche hobby, and we understand that. And it's going to move. And the more you piss people off, the more you eject people, that outer rim starts to kind of collect people. And after a while, it goes critical mass. Then there's nothing you can do. So this hobby right here, eventually those people are going to go away, because
a lot of
they're not going to have anybody buying their books eventually.
Like, and you've, like, I turned you on to Brigantia Blackbird and George Liberty. All it takes is, your audience that you've connected and that you've created friends and family and fans out of. All of a sudden, you gain me as a friend, family, and fan. And I'm saying, oh, hey, look, you should check out this circle of people that I know. And then here you hop in and making friends, family, and fans out of them. And here, they're doing the same with your audience. And it's I kind of just imagine it as all these like dead light bulbs hanging out. And all of a sudden you turn the one light bulb on, and since they're all hooked up in series, all the other ones start popping on and coming on. And
wait till you see this week's reading. I am so anxious for you to watch that one now.
Man, yeah, okay. I'll try to watch it. Like I said, there's a lot of people that do.
Said is gonna blow your head clean off.
So my wife and I, we do that all the time, where we say something and it's like the very next day, it's like it's almost like its own form of divination, and it still scares me. I'm like, that was cool. Hold on, we need to like meditate on this, make sure that it's what we thought it was, and not jump to conclusions. Anyway, I guess it's kind of going to this whole thing where, if you're familiar with Matt Walsh and Jeremy Hambley from the Quartering, that there was like the debate of Matt Walsh was like, if you like anime and video games and this, you're a terrible person and you need to grow up.
I'm a terrible person.
I guess I'm a terrible person. Like,
I'm a terrible person. I don't care.
For the entirety of humanity's sake, I think I can't remember if it was like Plato, Socrates, or one of Socrates, one of those other philosophers of another time, that said, the analytical / philosophical moments of our lives are what we live for. Food, our needs, and all that. Those are great. You need those. But the height of the human experience is figuring it out and trying to become closer to universal truth, not to be confused with our truth or your truth, or my truth. There is a universal morality. There's a universal ethics. There's a universal truth that exists, and every atom and every fiber of our beings is highly aware of that. And the whole reason why we experience strife is because somewhere in our little lizard brains, we're like, no, this is what I believe. And every other atom of our being is like, no, asshole, that's not how this works. You need to realign, you need to rebalance with everything else. And I don't know. I guess I'm thankful for platforms like Big Geek Emporium, Brumble, and Twitter, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to connect with you or Brigantia or Joe and Randy. I wouldn't have been able to, I don't think Grim Jim would count me as one of his friends. I follow him. He doesn't follow me. I think it's a pretty good indicator, but I love listening to him, and I'm pretty positive that he would have some serious concessions or arguments with me about some things. But,
we've had our I don't want to say we've had full out arguments, like nothing super heated.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been moments where he really goes out there, and I'm having to explain to him, or I'm trying to anyway. At one point, we were following each other, and after this, he just quit following me. But does he make a great game? Yes, he does. I'm still trying to wrap my head around actual fucking monsters, but I still love it.
Right.
As a system. I think it's really cool that he wrote that, especially how hard he went in the first few pages of the introduction. It was great,
because it's one of those things where it's like you play vampires, you play vampire to say that I want to be a monster and I want to love myself for it. You play actual fucking monsters because I want to play vampire and I want to play a monster, but I also want to like have a little bit of self-loathing.
Yeah. And the way he put it was, do you want to play this character? Okay, this one sure might work. Vampire that sparkles? No. Fuck. And I'm quoting him directly on this part. No. Fuck no. Fuck no on toast. Miss me with that shit. I'm like,
that's metal as shit.
Like, there are some of his takes I will actively watch because he's intelligently making points, and then there are some I'm like, okay, are these people, are they in the room with you right now? Because you're kind of coming across that way. I think you need to pump brakes just touch there. But
I'll tell you what, and the reason why I love and appreciate Grim is because I can have that conversation with him, and he can choose to engage or disengage as he pleases.
Yeah,
but there are some expletive deletives out there that, when faced with even just an inch of adversity, will say they'll hit that block button and say, "Nye, nye, 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 nye." And I'm like, bro, you were supposed to be a leader of this fucking hobby, and here you are acting childish beyond fucking reason.
Just like Leyline Press did, just completely acting childish. But I think the reason I love RPGs so much is because I also love to read.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And the types of books that I read, and I'm kind of anti-hero centric myself. I love Dirty Harry. I loved Rambo. I grew up on a lot of anti-heroes. The guys who have just given up. They don't want anything to do with anything, but they can't deny that they're protectors and they do good, and they hate doing it, but damn it, it's just part of them.
If I could pause,
Wolverine and the Punisher are prime examples.
I don't think that those are anti-heroes. I think those are heroes. And I'll make the case insofar as this. An anti-hero might be a villain who decides to do the right thing. So I would say like Suicide Squad, right? Look at those heroes, they're actual villains who are given an event that they have felt so much shame, guilt, or just that one moment. What is it that you quoted, or you were talking about Pirates of the Caribbean earlier, right?
Yeah.
With Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow's like, I like to look at those moments, and as they pass by, wave, or whatever it is. Those are anti-heroes. Dirty Harry exists in the confine where the city, the state refuses to do its job. It ineffectual, it decides to be an inactive participant at worst, abiding by the criminals that allow evil to exist. Dirty Harry doesn't exist within the laws of the state. He exists within the morality of the universe. That's heroic. It's not anti-heroic whatsoever. Punisher, Thomas Jane, especially as Thomas Jane portrayed the character in his movie with John Travolta. That's not an anti-heroic character. That is an absolutely heroic character who says, negative, your laws don't apply to me, especially when the villain, when the villain is owning the cops, when the villain is owning the law. I am operating within the law of reason, the law of humanity, the law of life. You guys are operating within the supposed law of society, and it's a farce. So in which case, people who are willing to, I like to make
I don't want to call them empty platitudes, but I do have a way of making a lot of tweets that sound really nice, because I do think that words carry presence. I mean, you shouldn't change the meaning of words anyway. And so I use a lot of flowery words to get my meaning across, insofar as like I won't shed a tear when evil is laid to rest. Or, taking the steps to cut the cancer out of your community isn't white knighting. That's policing your community.
Mm-hmm.
So when people tell me, what did you ever see the movie Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling?
No, I haven't. That one I haven't seen.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I take it I need to.
Oh, it's so good. Again, Russell Crowe, Ryan Gosling. Russell Crowe plays a hired muscle guy who only wants to do good. He wants to help people, and he's kind of lame. He's kind of older, right? This is Russell Crowe. Yeah, I'm not necessarily going from Gladiator to whatever that movie was where he played the trucker. That's kind of a villain.
Yeah.
He's somewhere in between. He's not like the physique built gladiator that he was. He's kind of like a pudgier old man. And then Ryan Gosling
bit of a dad bod.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling's coming onto the scene as this young, kind of apathetic private detective that was a cop, decided to not be a cop because he could make a whole lot more money being a private detective and not even having to be good at his job.
Yeah.
But they both get wrapped up into the story where they're opposing each other, and then end up working together to bring to light the actual malice within their community. And this point had to deal with, we want to go green, but we're going to do all these really bad things. And then there's like this woman who's like, yeah, we want to get this message out because they're all really twisted and corrupt individuals. But the only way we know how to do it is to put it in a porno film.
Yeah.
So it's called The Nice Guys. It's a really good thing, and it's a really good movie. I love the action in it. The messaging is really good. But I would say that the average person would look at them and say, "Oh, those are anti-heroes." Oh, what makes them anti-heroes? Why? Because they like to smoke cigarettes and drink a lot? No, negative. Those are flaws within the human character, but the seeking of objective truth and trying to uplift life and peace, that's what is good. So when we look at Dirty Harry, who's trying to waste this weird long-haired ginger fellow that likes to peep on people and whatnot, I would say that's not anti-heroic at all. I didn't see the new Venom movie, but from what my understanding is I would say he's heroic, not even an anti-hero, not nearly as much as. I'm trying to think of a movie that would legitimately be anti-heroes aside from like Suicide Squad.
Spawn.
See, again, we're looking at somebody who, and what's the guy that plays the Spawn's voice in the Todd McFarlane?
That's Keith David.
Keith David. What a voice. But again, so Spawn,
his vocal performance was great because you could believe him as Al Simmons, and then it was just a slight drop. It wasn't much, and he goes from a president as a president to, when the gangsters are in the alley and they're doing their little, that one's doing his game show stick, and he's like, and the double jeopardy answer is who is, and lightning flashes, there he is face to face with him. He's like, I'm about to take your fucking head off, asshole. And I'm like, yo, that was badass. Like, you could believe him, like, out of my way, old man.
Exactly.
Had all the best lines.
Dude, and I don't care what anyone tells me. I loved Michael Jai White as Al Simmons. That's one of my favorite.
He was good. He was
The Crow, Spawn, and Spirit. Those are like those dudes returned from death to life to exact vengeance upon actual evil. That some people would say, what makes an anti-hero? Oh, because he likes to dress in black and listen to metal as he's exacting vengeance. That's not what makes an anti-hero. That's somebody who just likes to listen to Iron Maiden or Cannibal Corpse while they're deciding to teach a couple of really evil people what objective truth and balance within the laws of the universe is.
But the reason I picked Spawn is primary reason is because before Allison
died,
he is a contract killer.
Well, okay, so in the movie, Michael Jai White's movie, who was he killing? Terrorists up until there was the extrajudicial assassination, which, by the way, so extrajudicial assassinations, talk about anti-heroes. I was going to make that point where it's up until he died, but after the point, him getting his revenge was just icing on top of restoring balance to whatever was going on.
Yeah.
When they decided to,
and he does make a deal with Malbolgia, and now he's basically like he's infested with evil, and he now wants to turn that, against the very forces that have employed him. So he's kind of got that going for him. Now, the one thing that will kind of put the pause on that is that he was developing a bit of a problem with his occupation. That much is true. I will never deny that. And he wanted out. And that's when Jason Wynn had him taken out. Because he did warn him, this isn't the United States Postal Service. You don't just leave. So when he expressed a desire, I want out, that's when Wynn has him killed. Then he goes to hell, makes the deal, comes back, and he is a pawn in the whole game between good and evil. And he slowly begins to start understanding that. And that's the only real pause button on that argument. But where I'm coming from is he's a killer. I mean, the guy is a dyed in the wool killer. Better example, Sons of Anarchy, Jax Teller.
All right, so I'm out of my depth here, so you're gonna have to explain to me.
Jax Teller, he's a criminal. I mean, you watch him, you root for him, you love him, but you got to understand you're rooting for a criminal. This guy he runs guns. He's part of an outlaw motorcycle club. They will, like, if one gets in a fight, they're all getting into the fight. He's the one, he's beating people down.
I have to take a bit of a break here. Hold on one second.
Sure. We've been going for almost 2.5 hours. That's I don't blame him one bit. But even with these games, and I'm gonna, I want to go back to that. I want to go back to sharing that screen because it's just so cool. Here we go. Part of Mutants right here. Cyborgs. So your Neo-Organic Nanology Corporation revolutionized both the cybernetics and sports industries. Boy, cyborgs in sports, you talk about performance enhancers. Cybernetics companies have a strong distaste for mutagenics companies. Non-Corp made it legal for cybernetic enhanced sports, but lobby hard to keep the mutants out. In a time where just about everybody's a mutant? Come on, dude. And regardless of the opinions people had about Non-Corp, their armaments were the premium choice. Folks would take out lifelong loans to have them installed, and they have a few of those here. You got Psychos in here. Here we go. Psychos, and oh, look at that. A nice little weapons shop right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need in the wasteland. And we're getting into the section on equipment now. So I think this is like the actual shopkeep here being held up by this dude here. And boy, they're looking at plenty of stuff, grenades and everything else.
Okay.
All right. I was actually showing off some more of the game, and I came across this piece here, and I was like, it looks like the actual shopkeep is being held up by a criminal, since we're talking about criminals.
Exactly. Yes,
so,
you are correct.
So going to Sons of Anarchy, particularly the Jax Taylor character, he is the vice president of his motorcycle club. He beats people down. He literally murders people. Like, this guy straight up murdered an ATF agent at one point in time because he was getting too close to his girl. And there are some redeeming qualities to Jax.
Well, hold up. So we're talking about an ATF agent, and you said he was getting too close to his girl?
Getting, like, apparently his girl was involved with this ATF agent. She broke it off, and he's kind of like stalking her, and he's finding out, oh, she's hooking up with this guy, and he's trying to use it to leverage that to open up a case against him to kind of get Jax out of the way. Lawful, because Jax is a criminal. He put himself in this position, and then at some point when the ATF agent insults his girl, he literally just blows the guy. He just shoots the guy in the head, like, just boom, 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 kills him instantly. And then he and his girl, they get it on with this guy's dead body in the room.
That's rough.
This is just how the guy is. He's a dyed-in-the-wool killer. His entire family were killers, but he does things in the end to kind of make things right. Like, he understands that he can't keep doing this forever, so he does try to change course. It's just that's the lifestyle to which he's accustomed, and it's like The Godfather. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. That's right. Exactly what happens to him. So when you're watching that, like, you can watch Sons of Anarchy right alongside Breaking Bad, and you can see the main characters go in two different directions, or at least they try to, and they sort of kind of want to have their cake and eat it too. But these are, to your point, the villain who actually sees that, if I start unleashing, if I unleash hell right here, it's going to cause a catastrophe that no one's going to survive. So I'm going to put the stop to that. I caused that. Let me stop that, and I'll figure out something else later. And even like Strife made a great villain. In fact, he was one of the most terrifying villains in.
I remember you and what's the other fella that you have on your Saturday shows?
Joe.
Joe, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that. That he was, in my opinion, like, now he's like, every time I think about just his attitude, it chills me to the bone to think about it, because it's very, especially the back of that card, where he was so into his ideological purpose, whatever it was, that he was willing to sacrifice any and everyone. And he said, I did it because I hate you all. I did it mostly because I hate myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, isn't that pertinent to today? Because we see a whole bunch of it. Just really, really, myopic and narcissistic, and just stuck on, entertaining himself at any and every cost.
I do have a thought about this. I do it because I hate you all, but I do it mostly because I hate myself. I think a lot of what our problem these days is that we're taught that the love that we have for ourselves, the hate that we have for ourselves. I mean, let's face it, people who say, you've dead named me. How dare you dead name me? Well, you call it a dead mate because you killed yourself. You've committed a personality suicide. And you only do that if you hate yourself. True. But you've been conditioned to believe that when you kill your own personality, when you kill your id for the sake of the fake super id, you're doing that out of love for yourself. I love myself. No, you hate yourself. If you loved yourself, you would be the person that you know to be true. The body that you're born in, the looks that you have. You wouldn't go out to change your appearance or change your equipment. Anyway, when we're looking at that picture in Mutants, I like to think of it as, you look at this ragtag group of individuals who's looking around the shop. And there's a couple different ways that this picture can go, that this story can play out. Of course, these shoppers can sense on this really shady businessman's accountants that he is a shady businessman and he's hiding something. I mean, it wouldn't take much more than checking out at the counter to see that he's got a robot arm pointing a gun at somebody.
Yeah.
And maybe perhaps they're able to save the poor buck-toothed, rabbit-eared fellow that is the clear owner of the shop. Or maybe, in a really dire, super sad sense, they say, oh, you're holding this guy up. How about we share the loot? You get half and we'll get half because clearly we outnumber you.
Right.
But maybe there's the somewhere in between where our hapless store owner gets his brains blown out just in time for our heroes to say, oh, screw that. They kill the real villain, and now they're filled in a shop of really good gear and loot and armor, and they're saying, well, it's what are we going to do? Take it or leave it?
Or he is the shopkeep, and that idiot tried to rob him.
That's a really fair assessment. That I didn't even think of that. And looking at it, to be fair, that guy does look like he could have a very suspicious look on his face, while the other guy has a very comfortable look on his face.
It kind of strikes you like if you just like take out all the rest of these characters for just a moment, and I want you to think of that scene in The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis opens his door, guys, give me the cash. What? Give me the cash. He's like, well, good thing for me that gun's not loaded. What do you mean it's not loaded? Button right there. You want me to go ahead? You got to push that button to load it. You want me to push it? Okay. He pushes the button, then you hear the gun just power down. He's like, that is a really dangerous gun. I think I should probably hold on to that for you. Keep it. Yeah. I don't need it. That's a very nice. You like it?
Come on, Dallas. Super great.
He does that stupid dance, and you're like, what was that?
Negative. I am a meat
popsicle. Smoke you. Wrong thing to say.
I love that movie so much.
Oh, it's such a great, and it's like almost 30 years old now.
I used to have the whole Ruby Rod introduction down, like, come on, Dallas. Here he is, the #1 winner of the Gemini Croquet Contest.
What that was bad, man. It had no fire, no energy, no nothing.
Oh. Dude, you have the rogue, you have the fighter, you have the cleric. Sci-fi D&D movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I completely like glossed over that. I had no idea until you pointed it out, but it was all right there in front of me. But that's like when we're talking about these characters, these archetypes. I think the main primary reason, and this is just a suspicion I have, especially with tabletop role-playing games come from so much of our folklore and it takes folklore, it takes mythology, it takes fairy tales, it takes just stories in general. And all these stories really have one thing in common. And most of them, these rather ordinary people who have never really done anything in their lives, it puts them in a situation where now they have to face adversity, they have to grow, they have to learn, and they have to do it in order to not just survive, but successfully complete their objectives. And when they come back, then they're hailed as heroes. Then they have all this renown. You can watch Record of Lodos War and see that very thing happening through both series. And the clumsy guy from the very first episode he has a lot of heart, but he has like no discipline. He has no training, and he thinks he's got it all figured out, and he keeps getting his ass kicked. And after a while, he starts getting it less and less until he's really proficient. By that second series, there's another guy who is just like completely out of his depth, thinks he has it all figured out, and looks up to this guy. looks up to the character from the first one who's already retired his status there. He's not interested in joining that. I mean, the position he really wanted. He's like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. And they're like, well, that invitation's always open. He's like, I got you, man. I appreciate it, but I'm all right. And there's this guy who kind of idolizes him. And now he has a set of circumstances that no one wants, but he has to figure that out. He has to make it work, and he becomes better. And that's the problem. Because if we have heroes to which we aspire, even if they're heroes of our own creation, then we start coming into our own power. Then they don't have anything, because now that's a mirror held up to them that says, you can do this as well. And they're like, no, I don't want to. And it's like, okay, but the rest of us are going. You can come along if you want, but you're gonna have to deal with some things. And they're just not willing to do it. That's not the way they were raised. It's not the way they're built. And eventually, this becomes such a mirror held up to them that they can't stand it. They have to get rid of that so that they have to tear all that down so that they feel built up, is basically what I'm getting at.
That's kind of how Hellboy was. Hellboy was this intrepid hero who was really kind of bad at it. It's one of the reasons why I of course I love the Ron Perlman movies, but I also really like the David Harbour movie because it opened up with his fight against the masked wrestler. I think in the movie he was a vampire, but he was supposed to be like a chupacabra in the comic book. And he was given this prophecy from the get-go, like, you're supposed to aspire to these great and evil things. He's like, no, I don't want none of that. I want to do my job. I want to be a relatively good guy, even though I kind of suck at it sometimes. And then eventually he accepts his destiny, and that's the only way he can turn it around. I mean, that's a really classic tale versus something like Hercules, who always had greatness thrust upon him as well as born within him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you have this really hard struggle of, again, going back to this anti-hero thing where it's like, oh, he's an anti-hero because he's got these really bad human-like flaws. Well, then the problem is like, we watch these anti-hero movies and it's like, well, it's okay for me to be an asshole so long as I do good things every once in a while.
Right.
And that's not always good enough. So, you can be forgiven for being an asshole. But forgiveness is a privilege. It's not a right.
Mm.
Doing good things can earn you the privilege of forgiveness, but you can also be so much of an asshole. What is it? I'm pretty sure it was Dennis Leary that came up with like asshole credits versus carbon credits. So it's like, yeah, you can earn yourself some asshole credits by doing really good things while still being an asshole, but it's not. Sometimes that's just not enough, because the last thing we want is for somebody to say, well, that guy's an asshole and he's still a good guy. Well, yeah, but you could be a good guy without being an asshole too.
True.
So, and sometimes it's needed. Like when there's really a namby-pamby piece of crap out there who's spreading real assholism and maliciousness, sometimes you have to be an asshole while having benevolence on your side to really change that guy around, or at least change the passive observer's mentality.
Yeah,
but,
and that came up in conversation on the Basic Experts Gilded server. I think it was in RPG Gripes, where Zach.
We're not supposed to name names.
I'm going to name names. Apparently, and I'm going to say this: does he write a good game? I'm pretty sure he does, and I'm pretty sure now. Of course, I got like 3 Lamentations books. I don't know if he was involved with any of them really, but I do have a bunch of PDFs, so I'm pretty sure I've got at least some of his work. And by reputation, I hear he writes a great game. There are other people, they write great games. But man, some of them have just not learned, do not attack the people don't bite the hand that feeds you. And these there are a couple I could think of, Zach being one of them, that he's just this monumental asshole, even to people who have literally put money in his pocket, even to people who have like supported him through all the accusations, which have been proven false, and he's won over and over and over again. And I'm like, you know, and this is kind of my point. You know, this applies to even groups that claim we're marginalized. We want this, that, and the third. It's like, okay, but do you really think that constantly putting people in positions where they can't justify siding with you is going to work? You can't keep you can't keep, you know, pushing people, because eventually they're going to start pushing back.
Okay. I see. I think I see where you're coming from. If we're gonna name drop, you know, the guy's name that I was gonna drop earlier was RPG Pundit, where it's like,
Yeah.
you know, if you're gonna bite the hand that feeds, bite the hand that's force feeding you sour grapes.
There you go.
You know, but if they're feeding you, so when I was in the Army, I was a water purification guy. There's palatable water and then purified water. Palatable water tastes good but can kill you, versus purified water may taste clean. You know, you're like, man, this is cleaned water. This is detergent water, but it's not gonna kill you, and it'll save you in the desert. It's like you can keep drinking that putrid palatable water, and you're gonna die because somebody's gonna cut the supply off. If you're DTRPG, apparently anybody who fucking sneezes at you the wrong way, you're gonna get pulled. You know, or you could be like this. You could be like this Zach feller, and I'm in the Basic Experts Gilded channel. Unfortunately, I don't make time to keep up with everything. But you know, if you say that he's a good guy, he's just an asshole. I'll accept that any day versus somebody who's parading around as a good guy and is still an asshole. Like once I see through that facade, it's over. I'm like, okay, great. You know, I don't need to listen to you at all. And as a matter of fact, I might just go ahead and purposefully be antithetical to you, because the last thing I want is for somebody to consume sour grapes thinking it's good for them while they're slowly dying inside.
Yeah, it's you know, that kind of thing. You know, I could say this: if they act that way to me personally, then yeah, I really don't see a point in continuing the support there. But at the same time, it's like I'm of the mind that when it comes to people who you want people on your side, and personally, the way I'd have looked at it, and I tried to bring this up, I'm like, this was an argument between myself and Pundit. If Big Geek Emporium will violate their own policy against the Red Room, deserved or not, is now beside the point. They violated that policy themselves.
Do you mean DTRPG? Because you said Big Geek Emporium.
Drive through. Yeah, I'm sorry, not Big Geek Emporium. Drive through RPG. They violated that policy themselves after they've said it. Again, if they just issued the warning, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, I'd have gone to them and been like, okay,
no, of course, yeah.
Let's think of a bit of a strategy here. But had it been that's still fair, because they set the policy and they went forward with the policy they set. They didn't do that, and for all these people that are like, oh, they get no sympathy from me. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. That's okay. But again, when you're preaching to me, don't give money to companies that hate you. That's what I think. That's the way Drive Through RPG put themselves across to me. They hate me. They will decide what I will buy and what I want. And I'm like, no, because Drive Through RPG doesn't have anything on there that
and that's exactly the case.
By other means,
like you were saying, I've watched enough of his videos to know that he says, you know, and for better or worse, like I said, even though he blocked me, I still have a lot of love for RPG Pundit, because he's one of those people that create a product that's good enough for people to come into the fold, and that's worth a lot. But I've watched enough of his videos to know that when he does a review of one of his own books, or when he talks about somebody else's book against his own book, he's an avid supporter of, hey, don't buy woke Stalinist bullshit. Buy Lion and Dragon. Buy I don't know what the fuck his other World of the Last Sun, I think, is his other game.
And Invisible College, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Invisible College. What was Job's book? The one that was supposed to be Lamentations.
Oh, the Book of Antitheses.
The Book of Antitheses. Like, yeah. I've watched RPG Pundit's review of the Book of Antitheses, and I wouldn't say that he gave a really good review of it, but I would still buy the Book of Antitheses before I bought the Invisible College.
Same, yeah.
Mostly because it's like, what is he trying to, like, for the same reason where it's like, I will still listen to Matt Walsh because I think his message is about right, but I'm not sharing any of his content. I'm not liking any of his content. I'm listening to it because I want his view on the news. I listened to some of RPG Pundit's reviews, even though he blocked me, and I would imagine has a ignorant disdain for me. He doesn't know who I am. I'm too small for him to know who I am. But he knew me well enough to say, fuck that guy. I don't want to listen to anything he has to say because he was calling me out on my bullshit, and I don't want to have to face that. Yeah. You have enough followers to where you're big enough. I think you have half as many or 3/4 as many as he does.
Probably, so yeah. I'm probably about like maybe nearing 1,600 now, which is blowing my mind because a year ago I had maybe 130.
Yeah. And I hate to break this down into, he's got more followers than you do. That doesn't make your ideas any better than his, or his any better than yours. It just simply means that more people gave credence to this person than they have yet to give credence to this person. And if there's three things that the Parlor values in this world, it's the worth of your name, your influence to defend the land or community that you claim as your own, and the bullets or means you have to defend that community and worth of your name. So anyway, that third thing is, for some reason, a lot more important. And in the realm of social media, the number of followers is equitable to that. And what's sad is, it's like, if we can capture people outside of this hobby, or in the really niche, like there's people who are into conservative OSR, or what is it, old school revival versus old school Renaissance. I think you're a person that's kind of in the revival as well as the Renaissance. You love to appreciate the old stuff, but you really want new stuff to come out that's not just a retro clone. You want to progress in a manner that honors and makes tradition of the old stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And the point to point to that, I've said this before. It was when this new crowd is calling Gygax racist. Oh, he was racist. He just didn't know it. Blah blah blah. I'm like, you know why I don't buy your game and why I buy this guy's game? It's because this group over here, I'll name names, Troll Lord Games. The reason I buy from them is because they understand they stand on the shoulders of giants, and they do everything they can to preserve this hobby. They preserve it as it was, and then they try to improve on it. You shit on them.
Exactly. And we do this thing with H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe. It's George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt. These people that, oh man, what is the thing that I hate the worst most? Oh, you're a conservative, you must love Ronald Reagan. No, I admire Ronald Reagan for what he did, but he tried to take guns away from black people in California.
Yeah,
what? I don't like the sound of that. I think everybody should be polite and heavily armed. No, Ronald Reagan's not my favorite president. I don't have a favorite president yet because I shouldn't deify humans.
No.
There's one great divine body, and I live on Mother Earth. And then there's the sun in the sky, which I can worship, and then there's the moon and the stars. Those are physical things that influence the world around me that deserve honor and ritual. Humans, negative. No, they're flawed beings, and while I can learn from them and I can learn how I can use their teachings, none of them deserve to be gods. They're so we're so far and beyond all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can make a couple of mistakes and like you said, stand on the shoulders of giants. The people who founded this country did a lot of stuff that I wouldn't agree to today, but that's also because I have the nicety, I have the cushioning of being able to say, no, that's messed up and that's messed up. We need to focus on these other really good things that you did. Well, we can't. We had to compromise. Okay, well, I'm glad that you compromised on that, so that way I don't have to these days.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I've had these conversations before where people have asked me, why I'm in the religion that I am, and I tell them it's because I know one thing: even my gods are flawed. But here's the difference: they understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the Eddas, the sagas, whatever, the one consistent thread is they're flawed. They know they're flawed, and they're not trying to pretend that they're not flawed, and they're trying to do better. They still get in these petty squabbles, such as
yeah.
Odin fucking with Thor across a river, posing as a ferryman, and they are just verbally battling it out. Thor is ready to kill him.
All I can think of whenever I hear that story is, what's your name?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what have you done? Oh, I was just sitting at home polishing my trophies. What did you do? I mean, they
Guess
are.
What I did last night? Don't you bring my mother into this?
Yeah.
I built that fire over there. Oh, that's nice. Then I fucked you up.
Exactly. That's exactly how we're going. It's this petty squabble. Odin's a thief. He understands that he's no more wise than Mimir. He went to Mimir for one drink from his well and got denied. Pulled his own eye out and gave it to him because Mimir wanted his long sight. And then he got the drink, and that eye went into the well. So, there's stuff like that. These gods, they know they're flawed, and it's kind of an accurate reflection of us. And I think if I have to follow anything, it's going to be that, because it makes the most sense to me. Because every day when I do my offering at the altar that I have in my home, that's the reminder that I'm going to get out there. I'm going to face all kinds of shit. I can stay insulated and think, hey, I'm great, or I can get out there and I can fucking prove it.
Yeah.
And that's the choice I have every day.
Against all odds and against your own flaws and against your own inhibitions versus your base animal instincts.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of it too, is like, I say, hey, throw your inhibitions to the wind. Well, no, wait, hold on. Some of those inhibitions are good.
Yeah. Some of them could save your life.
Exactly. Because, again, I was saying earlier, the atoms of your being are the same atoms that exist in the universe, and they know universal truth. Some of those inhibitions are your atoms saying, whoa, wait, hold on, life and peace versus death and destruction. Some of your inhibitions like, oh no, I need to go set fire to this. I need to go build a pyre. Yeah, fire in the middle of a really dry forest. No, don't do that. There's a really good place for fire, and it's over there where you can control the environment and go jump over the fire and welcome Beltane. Yeah. There's really bad places to do Beltane, and there's really good places to do Beltane. And then there's like, a really good self-love and a really bad self-love. So anyway,
it's the human condition. I think I think tabletop role-playing games, the stuff you write, the stuff John writes, the stuff Victor writes, like this close-knit group that we find ourselves in right now. I'll be honest with you, if I've thought about this and I was like, if my crypto ever moons, which I'm not going to hold my breath on it, but if it does, I think right there in that server, we got enough talent to start our own house, get that ball rolling, partner up with all the other people that have really done right by us. I think we'd have a powerhouse that would easily rival Wizards and Paizo and all these other companies that love to virtue signal, and we'd just be like, we're just going to release games, guys. Do you like them? Buy them. If not, okay, that's cool too. Sure, Wizards will take you and lecture you. We're not going to do that. That's, these things, they preserve so much of our culture. They preserve so many of our stories. They preserve those feelings of heroism, wanting to get out there, or just even, and dare I say it, there are games out there that I don't think would fall into that category, but they still preserve some little aspect of our lives that they at least put a little spotlight on it for just a few minutes. I know there's one where it's like a playlist building RPG. I think it might even be a solo game. Okay. Pretty cool stuff. They're like single page RPGs, really good stuff. What was it? Long time listener, first time caller, where you play the GM is the DJ, and everybody else plays someone calling into a radio show reporting on the end of the world as it's happening. These little concepts like that, they help us explore and deal with a lot of our, they really run us through mind games that'll help us eventually, dare I say, if we come upon a surprise, hey, something kicks off in the brain and says, I can do this, I can help here. And you'll instantly recognize it. It can, help people become better people by realizing, hey, when I walk out of that door, I'm going to get out there and I remember all these stories, and that's what I want to emulate today. And those could be a great thing.
And that's, going back to this debate, like even I made a video on my Rumble channel the other day where it's like, it's really good for you to share these stories and make that culture with you, your family, and all of that. But that's ancillary, but also kind of as necessary as being self-reliant or being able to help your community be reliant on each other. Because while we do things like homesteading or farming or, even just growing house plants in the house in order to be a cultivator of life, the aspect of storytelling and challenging your brain through use of stories or even through use of games in order to further your understanding of this universal truth and why you need to act the way that you act. Because, suffice it for me to say that I'm one of those people that when I actually get to play, I DM a lot, but when I actually get to play a character in D&D, I want to play the character that I wish I could be on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes there's like that t-shirt that says I work out so I could do some of the things that my D&D character can do. It's a lot of that, because I don't every time that I've played like Fable or Knights of the Old Republic and those other games where you have these ambiguous moral questions, I've always felt internally queasy about making the evil decision, or I should just say evil decision, versus like Mass Effect did it, I think, really well, where they had the quick time events where it was your Paragon versus your I don't think it was Pariah. What was the bad decisions if you ever played Mass Effect?
I never have, to be honest with you.
I think it's Renegade. So in Mass Effect, you get these role-playing scenarios where you could hit the right trigger, and you could be a paragon, which was like the light side of the force, versus the renegade, which was the bad side. But there was like this one that always sat really horribly with me, where you came up upon this mercenary and you shot out this window in this sky rise, and the mercenary was like, no, please don't, I can give you information. And the quick time event was a bad decision renegade event where you could push him out of the window and, one, get rid of a bad guy, and two, get rid of like an ambush scene because he wasn't there to like set off the ambush. And it's like you're getting rid of somebody who actively sought to murder and steal from the community around him. How is that a bad choice? Like, yeah, I guess you could try to reform that person, but up until the last moments of his life, he was trying to do the same thing, murder and steal from society.
Yeah.
So like that again, like we were talking about the anti-heroes. That's a heroic. This game in its arbitrary nonsense decided that's an evil act because you're pushing a defenseless man out of the window. Yeah, but the very next thing that he would have done was try to ambush me and my party of, unaware good doers.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then that kind of brings us to this whole point of alignment being taken out of Dungeons and Dragons. What's your view?
Oh, my view on that, leave it where it is. It's fine. If you really want a game, and this is why I cannot for the life of me understand it, because the same crowd that is arguing for removal of alignment in D&D because no one's inherently good, no one's inherently bad. Believe me, work in a prison, you will find at least 5% of your population is just they inherently suck. It's a fact of life. That's
fair. Okay.
Yeah, it's in there. It's a small minority, but they're there, and there's no other place for them in society. And the rest of them, most of them, I'd say about 75% wouldn't even be there if they just kept their mouth shut and let their lawyer handle it. And then the rest, it's true.
No.
Trying to talk their way out of it. They don't understand anything you say can and will be used against you. There's nothing you say that will help you. And then the other ones, everything in between, just kind of like they screw up, they blame everybody else, they don't see their own faults, and that's just kind of how it really shakes out. Maybe this is what they need to kind of make it click that, hey, you can't do that. Stop doing that. But there's that 5%, a very small percentage of them
that are like legitimately malicious,
legitimately vicious. They just don't know anything else. And
viciously malicious.
That's it. And that's where they belong.
Fair. Okay.
So the people that are making that argument for the removal of alignment, I realize I went way off, but digression aside, the same groups of people that are making that argument are they have people in their group that got the Red Room pushed off of Drive-Thru-RPG. And the Red Room makes a game that is devoid of alignment. They have a transgression system. So your character, you have an excuse to now play a completely shitty person. And you're not playing a villain. You are actively playing an anti-hero.
Yeah, I was going to say, Miguel and Sylvia did a really good job of writing a game that I feel comfortable playing in as like a bleeding heart, good guy, liberal character, while at the same time giving me the access to be able to be a flawed human character.
Yeah, and the transgression system actually works. And it's like I was looking at a character that I've played in Second Life, my smuggler, and I've brought this up on Twitter before. I tried to actively bring the smuggler character into Traveler, but it's super hard to roll that. Like, there's just very little, if any, guidance for that. And I can't, everything is going to be military career. It's kind of the same in Cepheus Engine, but I think it might be a little easier to roll that in there. But if I were to put him into Wretched Space, it's easy. I mean, he's a drug addict and an alcoholic. There's a good reason for it. And the only time he ever stops doing the booze and the drugs is when he needs to make a deal, he's on a run, or he's got a lead on slavers. Like, he has an intense hatred for those types. So he will actively stop doing the stuff just to, make a deal, do the deal, or hunt down slavers. But the problem is, he's in such pain constantly that he's a dick. Like, you don't want to be on the ship with this guy. You don't want to share a small space on his ship when he's running your cargo, because he is going to be a world-class cock. And that's how he is. Not necessarily a bad guy. It's just no one really wants to deal with this guy, except that he makes successful runs, for your illicit cargo, whatever it is.
Well, I mean, that doesn't sound a whole lot different than Mal from Firefly. Maybe a lot less drug abuse.
Yeah. But the drug and alcohol abuse, the reason why I say there's a good reason for it is because, and this goes back to his hatred for slavers, is because they kidnapped his aunt. That was the one bit of family he had left. He found her. She, this was that Shmi Skywalker ripoff I did, where he got her out of there. He was bringing her home. He was taking care of her, but she ended up, she was so abused, she just died. And he had to bury her in space. Right after he did that, they caught up to him, forcefully boarded his ship, and literally scooped his eyes out.
Rough.
Yeah. The ship had to take him to where, like, the nearest place he could go. He had implants put in. Now he can see again. But these eyes, and this is where I ripped off a little Star Trek too, his eyes are constantly causing him all kinds of pain. And the drinking and the drugging are the only thing that actively numb that pain. Unfortunately, they just don't make him worth a shit. So the whole time he is in pain from this stuff, and that's why he's so short with every fucking body. So you don't want to be on the ship with him when he's running your cargo. You just better trust him that it's going to get there. Be ahead of it, and be like, okay, he's got it here. Yeah, get this shit off my goddamn ship, And the attitude was Don Johnson's character from Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man mixed with Han Solo, just a really shitty version of both of them. So that's the kind of character I put together, and I brought it up. I was like, yeah, I'm totally going to bring this character into Wretched Space, and Miguel was like, we need that character. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just one that I worked on for a while. I didn't have any character stats for him, but now I'm probably going to, because at some point I'm going to bust out the book and just roll him up. And, I know he's not going to be exactly the same, so I might have to make some adjustments, but that's just how it is. I'm good with that. I'll build him back up to that dickhead he is. But yeah. This is what I'm talking about. Like, leave, especially, I mean, okay, Paizo and Wizards can do whatever the fuck they want with it. I don't care. I've got all the books I need. As far as official D&D clones, I got all that I need. I got Castles and Crusades. I could just default to that if I want to and convert all those 5th edition modules I bought from third parties. It's fine. But if this is your argument that it needs to be removed, then why did you not step behind? And going back to that Numenera point again, there's a system right there that will do exactly what you're wanting. Why did you have it removed? That's why these people make no sense to me, because I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking? Are you thinking, what happened? I I don't get it.
It's the same stuff. They're tearing down the statues that make the history that we have. So,
Yep.
Well, I mean, we've covered a wide. We've definitely. There was no railroading in this conversation.
No, this is a sandbox. This is very much a sandbox.
We sandboxed the hell out of this. But I had an excellent time. Is there anything specifically you wanted to talk about for?
Yeah, that's my line.
For Paddy's Parlor, or
that's my line.
I'm sorry, because I could keep going. Man, I'm sure I could go for another 3 hours.
We should totally do this again, though, because this is fun, and hopefully one of these days we can do it right there on my live stream, or maybe we can just do an impromptu live, and we'll get some audience participation next time, and maybe have them ask some questions. Who knows?
That would be fun. I would really enjoy that.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out by saying the thing that I love to say this because, well, it's the best way to close out, and it'll give you something to think about. So just remember, guys, on behalf of Paddy and myself, we love you all. We want you to take care of yourselves and each other. Always play what lights you up. And as always, play on.